See that warning includes areas west of Wapello and southwest of Muscatine. I'm going to peel this off the screen for a second. That warning is going to go until 12:30. You can see it's for hail and also 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So that line will continue working its way here to the north and to the northeast. If we put a tracker on that to see where that severe thunderstorm is capable of going here, we'll really extend that out. You can see Muscatine about 12:30, Aledo at 12:41, and then into Milan just before 1 o'clock. So again, this is likely going to be the main line that gives us problems as we go into this afternoon. And as this thing works east, you notice there's this clearing ahead of it. That line will likely intensify more as it reaches the Illinois side of the Mississippi River. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center is monitoring this area southeast of the Quad Cities, likely for a tornado watch, which will be issued probably within the hour here. That's the way things look right now. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. There's the clearing. And then, yeah, here's what we're expecting in terms of that severe threat. Still a 3 out of 5 to the southeast of us, and that's likely where the brunt of the tornadoes will be today. So we have another live stream coming up at noon. Go over the latest Storm Prediction Center outlook and all the details there just moments away here.
All right.
Finally. Good Wednesday afternoon now, Quad Cities. It is Wednesday, March 19th, 2025, and we are back with you again live here on the 8+ app and also likely simulcasting on our social media channels as well. I'm talking about the severe weather threat that will be manifesting itself as we get into this afternoon. I want to give you the latest update on the track, the timing, intensity, and of course the threats that these storms are going to bring. What we're tracking right now, new this hour, is the National Weather Service in the Quad Cities is currently in a conference call with the Storm Prediction Center, getting ready to issue what is likely going to be a tornado watch for likely the south half of our area. This is right now where the severe threat is currently increasing, and you can see that is south of the Quad Cities, right down through Burlington, Galesburg, Kewanee. You can probably include Princeton in this too, but this is the zone right now where we're focusing in our attention for a likely watch that's going to be issued here momentarily. We'll see what happens with that. On the radar right now, we do have one severe thunderstorm warning, and that is for this storm here that is currently making its way into parts of Louisa County. This warning, it does include Columbus Junction, Grandview, Letts, and also Winfield. That's going to go until 12:30. That storm is moving to the northeast at about 50 miles an hour. And again, this is going to be for wind for this particular warning. Elsewhere, we have more strong storms that are intensifying as we go south of Burlington. And further south of that, you've got a really healthy looking storm here just outside of Macomb that is also moving to the northeast. So let's start tracking some of this here. Also, don't want to forget folks here in Illinois, light rain for the most part until you get to the Sauk Valley. You've got some heavier thunderstorms moving through there, but nothing severe at this time with that activity. A couple more areas of rain and some embedded thunder north of Princeton, but nothing severe there at this time. So let's start with this severe thunderstorm warning. We'll start tracking this and where it's going to be heading. We'll take you to the wind velocity data here too. So putting the tracker on this, taking it in this direction. We are talking about this reaching the Quad Cities right around 1 o'clock. Andalusia, of course, before then at 12:45. Muscatine right close to the bottom of the hour as we get to the 12:30 time frame. And Columbus Junction, we're talking about just a few minutes. So already the radar is getting active. This is likely going to be part of the main event that comes in here this afternoon, this little wave of energy. And these storms are expected to intensify, especially as we get into this afternoon. Here's the setup. And what we've got going on is this clearing that is currently taking place ahead of that line. You can see a lot of clearing, a lot of sunshine. The energy, storm energy is beginning to build up, and that will continue to build, especially on the Illinois side, as these storms race into that region. We will plot the storm energy on the map here, and you can see, yes, indeed, there is some that has already started to build in that very vicinity where we've had a little bit of sun here behind some of these showers and thunderstorms that we've had already this morning. The wind shear, we do have some of that present as well. It's especially strong, especially as you go south of Interstate 80. That kind of helps explain the tornado threat and why we think those areas definitely have more of a risk of one of those really quick spin-up tornadoes as these storms move through this afternoon. Want to show you also the latest update from the Storm Prediction Center. This came in just right around 11:30 this morning, if not shortly before. Really not much change to this. We're still thinking that areas southeast of the Quad Cities have the best opportunity of seeing those widespread severe thunderstorms, including that potential for wind, hail, and yes, even a few tornadoes. The tornado zone with this hasn't really changed either. That is still remaining the same. I'll go ahead and put that outlook up so you can see that from Princeton to Kewanee down to LaSalle, Peru, and the I-39, I-74 corridor heading into Peoria. That's where a strong tornado or two will certainly be possible as this line enters a more favorable environment for tornadoes to develop. The other threat we have today, of course, we saw the hail this morning. That was mainly smaller size hail. We could see hail up to the size of quarters this afternoon, and wind gusts may briefly approach 60 miles an hour with some of these storms. Let's go to the latest rendition of Future Track here. I'm going to back our timeline up just a little bit so we can see what's going to happen earlier. So what I'm showing you is Future Track and storm energy. That red you're seeing south of Interstate 80 creeping north is indeed that storm energy that we need to get the storms going. And you see they do just that. But it still appears, you know, that timeline may have moved up about an hour here. The main event moving in now closer to 1, like what we're seeing right now here on Future Track, and then possibly a little bit earlier as we go into the 2 o'clock hour, getting into Sterling Rock Falls and Princeton. So thing is speeding up a little bit more the front it is, and then we'll move that storm threat out of here completely by the time we get to the 5 o'clock hour, if not maybe as early as 4 for some of you. Then we'll get to this evening. We'll talk about that mix of rain and snow moving in, heavy snow after 8, 9 o'clock. And that will taper off as we get into about 2 o'clock tomorrow. But what we're looking at here on Future Track, this is the latest run. It is updated hourly. Our high resolution now showing, and I agree with this based on the radar presentation, that this is coming in about an hour earlier than what the forecast looked like just a few hours ago. So we'll go back to radar again, show you what's going on there while we await for this likely what's going to be a tornado watch to be issued from the Storm Prediction Center. Again, the National Weather Service folks right now are coordinating that with the Storm Prediction Center, who is in charge of putting out those watches. So we don't have one right now, but one is likely forthcoming as this line of storms will likely intensify as it gets into Illinois. So there is a severe thunderstorm warning there for parts of Louisa County, including Wapello, Columbus Junction, and also getting into Winfield. That's going to go until 12:30, so 30 minutes on that, and that's for wind. Promise we're going to take a look at the velocity data in here too, just to see what was going on in terms of that wind. And there it is. Let me see if I can get a little bit better view of the velocity. And yeah, I can see why they had issued that. You can see some of the brighter greens, especially coming in north of Winfield, indicating some strong wind gusts with that storm system, particular part of the storm system that is. So we'll put one more track on there, because what I'm talking about is this area right here. Moving to the northeast. Let me get one more loop out of that. We'll kind of get a good eye for where that's going. So there we go. We're about 1 o'clock here in the Quad Cities for that wind potential to come in. Again, this is if it maintains course and maintains its intensity, something we're really going to be watching. What I'm noticing, though, especially as you go further down this line, is the intensity of lightning is starting to pick up, and that is a sign of strengthening. We're seeing that lightning really start to increase right here in and around Burlington, indicating this storm is strengthening. And I'm really kind of keeping an eye, too, on the hail potential with that storm. Increased lightning is also an increased sign of hail production. So we're going to go ahead and throw the hail tracker on here really quick, that probability of hail. And you can see, yes, there is some. It's not very high. It's still in the low category. But that storm that's kind of southwest of Macomb, that definitely has some hail potential with it as it works up 136 there and gets into town. We can get an early estimate on size, and right now it appears it's small, so nothing very large, out of range. So it's a little too far away from the radar to get an accurate data right now. But once we get a little bit closer, we should be able to do that. But the hail potential for Macomb looks like it's going to be ramping up here shortly. Again, hail probability is growing in size. We can put this into motion and you'll see how that's changed. Looks like the worst of it may just go north of town, but if you're between, I would say, Roseville and Macomb, we're going to be tracking some hail potential there. Other signs of hail, again, I was watching that area near Burlington. You can see we're getting a little bit higher up on the green scale, which indicates low hail potential, but we're noticing the lightning is starting to ramp up too with that particular storm that's moving. So let's get a track on that one, because that is another one that appears to be intensifying here in the last few minutes. That's heading to the northeast. So that would be more of a threat for Little York and Aledo. Aledo right around 12:48 before the top of the hour, and Burlington also kind of in that zone in just a matter of a couple of minutes. It's actually right on top of you, so you're seeing that in Burlington now. Aquaka is also in there too at 12:25. We've got Edgington at 12:59. So seeing a common theme here, and that is 1 o'clock, it looks like, for crossing most of the Mississippi River. If you do have questions, I'm going to try and take those as best I can. My trustworthy buddy Peter Warner is currently taking a well-deserved break, so I'm going to try and get to those here if you've got them. In terms of submitting them, it's 309-304-0888. 309-304-0888. That's what we're going to be getting your questions through. So I'll see if I can get to those as we go throughout our chat here really quickly. If anyone is in Burlington and you can give us a live update as to what's going on with the storm that's moving through your neck of the woods, that would be extremely helpful. A lot of you saying, you know, the weather has been kind of weird. Michael up in Clinton saying it's 39 degrees there and you had hail that's still on the ground. Yeah, that was quite a storm that moved through earlier. Also, people asking what's going to happen with the conditions. What are we expecting up in Clinton? Well, you know, there's still going to be a hail risk and a wind risk and an isolated tornado risk too. We're not out of the woods yet just because your temperature is that cool. This whole system is moving to the northeast, and eventually that warmer air will start to pull to the northeast too. Before we get to more questions, let me pivot right back down here because this is what we call that canary color. of a line. So what this means is tornado development is possible. Remember, I just talked about that. The storm was intensifying to the southwest of Macomb. So where we've got you right now is in McDonough County, where there is a severe thunderstorm warning there. And notice at the top of your screen, it says tornado development is possible right up here. So the National Weather Service monitoring that storm for tornado potential. That one actually is in a decent spot for tornado potential because there's deeper moisture down here. Also notice there's nothing sitting in front of that storm. It's got an unimpeded view and an unimpeded feed of moisture and instability to pull it right into it. So that very well may be our first tornado warning later here of the day, and that storm would eventually track into southern Knox County as we go through the next hour. So let's put the track on that, get it going to the northeast. There you see some of the timing here. Bushnell at 12:32. Again, there's no tornado warning. There is a severe thunderstorm warning with the tag saying a tornado is possible, meaning a tornado, an actual tornado, could develop at any moment with that particular storm. Into Avon at 12:40. We'll be into Abingdon at 12:48. Galesburg at 12:57. And then into Logan just a little bit after 1 o'clock. So Galesburg, this is going to be one to watch, especially if this thing can keep its act together. We're talking about that getting near town just before 1 o'clock. So again, we're shifting our timing a little bit on this. It looks like things are coming in about an hour earlier than what the forecast had earlier this morning. So that's why I'm sticking with you here on this live stream as we walk you through some of these storms that are coming through. So there's our severe thunderstorm warning that's still ongoing for parts of Louisa County. It's been trimmed down a little bit more. Still looking at 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts with that storm, and it'll be heading off to the north and to the east. Still no indication of any storm reports or anybody getting any wind from that storm, but if you are, certainly let us know. You know, continuing to look at the velocity data with this suggests there are indeed some strong winds being brought into that storm and out of that storm. Gusts potentially again reaching 60 miles an hour. Now that Macomb storm is very far away from the radar, and that is why we're having difficulty picking up any rotation, whether it be on our radar or the Lincoln radar. There's a little bit better view of it, but still very broad rotation in the upper levels of the atmosphere, but enough there to go ahead and tag it with that tornado development possible tag from the National Weather Service. So that's going to be one keeping an eye on. Still waiting again for that likely what's going to be a tornado watch to get issued. We'll see which counties fall under that. If you're curious what areas they're discussing, this is what we call a mesoscale discussion from the Storm Prediction Center, and it's a 60% probability that a watch is going to be issued within the next hour. So this gives you a graphical idea of where that watch could potentially be issued for very shortly. And yeah, 60% probability. So that's certainly likely at this point. So that watch would likely include a good chunk area south of the Quad Cities. Whether it includes the metro, you know, we're going to have to kind of wait and see until it gets issued. But I think it's almost certainly a guarantee that Burlington would be in this along with Macomb and Monmouth, Galesburg. Likely parts of Henry County may be under this here too, if not Henry County itself. Of course, we issue these watches by county, so Henry County, Illinois is a possibility. Certainly Henry County, Iowa is also a possibility, and so is Bureau County. But yeah, it looks like if you're along and south of Interstate 80, the chance of you getting some kind of watch, likely a tornado watch being issued here shortly, is quite high if you're in this zone right now. Speaking of, I want to show you the temperature difference. What is driving today's severe weather risk? And this is what it is right here. 30s to the north. Like we said, Michael is in the live stream right now, said he's got 30s right now in Clinton, which I would believe the official temperature there showing it. But you go to the south, it's practically 70 degrees in Macomb. Where you've got that warmer temperature, that is where you're going to see that better opportunity for not only some stronger winds, but also the tornado threat. So it's very, very easy to see on the temperature map where that is taking place. That is right down here in that zone where we've got that 3 out of 5 risk for severe weather today. That's also where the tornado zone is here too. On the fly, I'm going to see if I can pop up some dew point numbers, because the dew point is another tool that we have in our toolbox to try and figure out where that tornado threat could potentially really be maximized in the near term. We're looking for our dew point temperatures that are close to 55 or greater, and where we have those, that's where we're going to have enough low-level moisture to get the spinning of those storms to get a little bit closer to the ground, easier for tornado formation. So here's our dew point temperatures right now, and you can see they're not impressive in the immediate Quad Cities, but as you go further south, like in Burlington and Galesburg, and this moisture is increasing, by the way, there's where we have those higher dew points. A little bit of breaking news right now. Our tornado watch has been issued and it is in place until 9 o'clock. I'm going to take you to the watch's warning map here really quickly, and we're going to kind of watch it fill in. Give me just a second, because again, we're doing all of this on the fly, if you will. So this is happening in real time. We should see that tornado watch begin to pop up here on the map. I know for sure Geneseo is in it because my Storm Track 8 weather app just went off. It told me Geneseo is in the tornado watch, so I know that's for certain. Let's see if we can find out who else is going to be in the tornado watch. That's also going to include Bureau County. We have got, who else in here? Henry County, Illinois is included in that. I can only name Illinois locations right now. So we've got Bureau County in the tornado watch, Henry County in the tornado watch, Knox County in the tornado watch. We've got a couple others, it looks like, too. Warren County, and here they are. So look at the bottom of your screen here. We're going to quickly see this fill in with that red box, which is your tornado watch that the National Weather Service is just now putting out. And you can see that watch actually goes all the way into Indiana. Again, you're watching this in real time here as the National Weather Service is putting this out. And oh, there we filled in the Chicago National Weather Service office region. Let's zoom in a little bit closer here and wait for our hometowns here to pop in, and then they are. And there you see, this is interesting now. The Quad Cities is included in that tornado watch. They did go ahead and extend it this far north. So it does include, you've got Scott County, you've got Rock Island County, Louisa County, Muscatine, or excuse me, not Louisa, you got Muscatine County, or not Muscatine, I'm sorry, Mercer County. That's what I was looking for. So Scott, Rock Island, Mercer, you've got Warren in there, Knox, Henry, Bureau, Stark, Putnam. Those are all of our counties in our coverage area that are currently in that tornado watch, and that is going to go, I believe, until 9 o'clock. I might be able to click on it and confirm, and yes, there it is. So that tornado watch will be in place until 9 o'clock. So there's the watch. We now know who's under it, and certainly where we're going to be paying attention to when it comes to these storms as they're moving through in the next couple of hours. So now that we've got that established and we know which hometowns are under that, quite a few actually, including, yes, the metro, let's go back to the radar and see what we've got going on in terms of any new developments for any stronger storm activity. We're still hanging on to this severe thunderstorm warning for about 12 more minutes in Louisa County. This is right here. It's going north of Wapello. And that is for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So we'll keep an eye on that. But look at this now. Even this has just changed. So what you're seeing, anytime that bright box pops up, that means that this has been updated. And what they're saying right now, the National Weather Service, is that tornado development is possible at any moment now with this severe thunderstorm that is currently working its way through Louisa County. So those of you in Columbus Junction, Grandview, especially in Muscatine, Edgington, anywhere west of the Quad Cities along the border there of Rock Island and Muscatine County, really need to be keeping a close eye on this here with us in the next few minutes. If we end up getting tornado development, that could become a very serious situation. And again, it is possible. Let's go to the velocity data, see if we can point out anything in particular. Give it a second here. We're going to wait for the newer radar scans to come in because right now we have some interesting data that this thing is trying to compress and observe. So we'll give it a second. Sometimes when the radar is switching between two different modes, we get some funky looking data, and that's what's happening right now. But if we give it a minute as some new scans come in, we'll get some clearer data that we're going to be able to look at. But that's interesting right there that that particular storm is now being tagged as tornado development possible. You saw that on the top corner of your screen there. So getting that tornado watch out just in the nick of time here as this storm appears to be getting its act together. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more, kind of look and see if we can see any features that are going on in this particular storm. I don't see any impressive, what we look for, which are notches or couplets, at least in the reflectivity data right now. But given the environment we have, I'm certainly not too surprised that they've tagged this as a tornado warning possible. Let me see if I can back this up, because this is what we're trying to do here. We got a bad scan on the radar, and that happens. Again, we're going through different modes with the radar. We're putting it into a different mode at the National Weather Service office. So that will sometimes happen where we get a bad batch of what they call this velocity data. We'll wait for a new scan, see what that looks like, but this is going to be one to watch, and this is going north of Wapello. So if you're in Muscatine, anywhere that's ahead of that storm, I'm going to put a track on it in a second. Right in here, we're going to be keeping a very close eye as that works into a little bit more of a favorable environment, and we could see tornadoes develop out of that particular storm. We're also still watching that severe thunderstorm warning and tracking this near Macomb. This also has the tag saying tornado possible. Again, this is a much better environment down here. You've got warmer temperatures, a better wind field, and you also have more moisture. So a much better environment for tornadoes down here near Macomb. That severe thunderstorm warning has that tag at the top that you see that says tornado development possible. A little too far away from the radar for us to get a good estimation on what the winds are doing. We can see some broad rotation, but at this time, we are not looking at the bottom of the storm. This is so far away from the radar, we're looking at the middle to top part of the storm, which doesn't help us when it comes to rotation. We want to be able to look at the bottom portion of the storm. We're still waiting for a better scan to come in here on the velocity. Again, we're going to give it a couple of minutes with some new data to see what's going on. With that storm that is sitting southwest of Muscatine, definitely appears to be entering a favorable environment where we could get a little more twisting motion coming in here. Other storms, it's a solid line for the most part right now, which does in the long run help cut down on the tornado threat, but we could still have those quick spin-ups on the leading edge of this line, and that line stretches from Iowa City, just west of Muscatine, all the way down to west of Keysburg into Burlington, and that line is moving to the north and to the east. Again, watching this one here in Macomb, it's an early heads up for those of you that live in the south half of Knox County. Eventually, we're going to be getting that storm into your region, along with those of you in southeast Warren County. Probably not up to Roseville at this point. I would say it'd be just a little bit to your south. But Avon, this is almost kind of a direct hit here from that storm. Let's put the tracker on it, and there you see Good Hope is in there. Bushnell, Avon are also in there, and then Abington and Galesburg. Still thinking Galesburg right around 1 o'clock here as that storm continues to move to the north and to the east. But yeah, I'm still very interested to see what's going to happen with this particular storm and what the velocity data is going to be telling us. Again, we're waiting for the newer scan to come in. Not seeing too much exciting on that right now. Patience is a virtue. By the way, the National Weather Service just put up their weather balloon. They're sampling the atmosphere as we speak right now to kind of get a better look at the dynamics that are coming through, give us a little bit more of a better idea as to what is happening with the upper levels of the atmosphere, and that will help us forecast what is happening. And there is what I was waiting for right there, a brand new scan from the Doppler radar. And now we can see why they're saying a tornado is possible. If you look at some of the inbound and outbound winds, yes, we have some broad rotation going on in that part of the storm that is sitting southwest of Muscatine. It's nothing tight, it's nothing organized or strong, but we have some broad weak rotation that is currently going on in that storm. So that's why we have that tag of tornado possible in that situation. Let's go back down and see what's going on for this storm here down in Macomb, where we're still seeing some broad rotation there too, and a severe thunderstorm warning still remains intact for that region as well. Lots to keep an eye on here. Let's put this radar into motion so you can see again what's going on with the movement of this. We still have some heavy rain coming down into the Sauk Valley, but right now the only severe weather we're seeing is just south and west of the Quad Cities. Watching that very, very closely. Let me zoom this out a little bit further because I want to give kind of a more broader view in terms of the arrival time of these storms coming through. So let's put our tracker on this, and actually first let me grab a quick update and see the storm motion here, because that's going to be important for our tracking tool to have the most accurate information. So we're moving, generally speaking, at 45 miles an hour. So I'm going to input that into my computer. That looks good, and we will save that. All right, and let's start tracking this. So when we're talking about this here, the one that's got some broad rotation with it, we're moving this up into the Quad Cities after 1 o'clock. When it continues east, we're talking about this getting into western Whiteside around 2, and then after 2 for Sterling Rock Falls. Let's pivot down even further. Let's go down to this storm that's moving through Burlington. Galesburg again right around 1 o'clock. Into Kewanee at about 1:30 to 1:40. Into Princeton at about 2:30, right in that same time frame. If we're taking the northern edge of this storm, we're talking about areas of Jackson County at about 1 to 1:30, and then hitting the Mississippi River right around 2 o'clock. So the only thing that's changed timing-wise is we've moved this timeline up by about 30 to 45 minutes based on what we saw this morning. That is the only thing that has changed. Again, we have that recently issued tornado watch that does include the immediate Quad Cities metro and a good chunk of our hometowns sitting to the south of the Quad Cities. No tornado warnings right now. All we have is an active severe thunderstorm warning. That's parts of Louisa County. There is also an active severe thunderstorm warning that is ongoing in McDonough County for areas near Macomb. I'm going to pull up the severe thunderstorm and tornado watch map here one more time so you can see again which areas are under these alerts, and we'll let that populate for a second. There it is. So you see it does include the Quad Cities, and it does include a good chunk of our hometowns on the Illinois side, including Kewanee, Princeton, Geneseo, even Galesburg. That watch will go until 9 o'clock this evening. However, we are not going to see our threat last until 9 o'clock this evening. There is a very good chance by as early as 4, perhaps 4:30 later this afternoon, early this evening, the threat will be completely out of our region. But if you're under the tornado watch, now is the time to start preparing for these storms to potentially get fairly nasty here in the next 45 minutes to an hour as they head deeper into Illinois with some better moisture, better wind fields, better support for the possibility of a few isolated tornadoes, and don't forget damaging winds. Good chunk of the region remains under that 3 out of 5 threat track. You're seeing it there from the Storm Prediction Center, especially as you get to Galesburg, Kewanee, and Princeton, and then a 2 out of 5 for the Quad Cities and points to the north. But honestly, you look at the tornado watch, I still agree that it's going to be this area right down in here where that watch is currently issued that's going to have the majority of our attention as we go into this afternoon. Still can't rule out some hail as you go north of the Quad Cities. Like Michael said in the chat, temperatures right now in Clinton are only about 40 degrees. So if a stronger cell were to make its way up there, the hail threat would be the dominant situation. But the tornado threat, in terms of that, you're going to see it right in that area where the tornado watch has been issued. So we showed you where the watch is. We showed you where the severe storm zones are. Let's go back to the radar, see if we have any additional updates on what's going on. By the way, welcome if you're just joining us here. We are streaming live on the 8+ app, which you can find on your smart TV. And those of you that aren't watching on the 8+ app, maybe you're watching on social, well, I encourage you to get the 8+ app if you have a smart TV. Amazon Fire Stick will do it, Roku TVs, Apple TVs. It's a free app. What's nice about the 8+ app is we're able to do as much coverage as we want, and we don't have to worry about network programming or anything like that. So a big advantage to having it. Of course, our policy for on-air coverage will not change, will not waver. When life-threatening weather moves into the Quad Cities, we will be on air to track you through it step by step. So to show you what's going on, again, a quick summary and recap here. 2 ongoing severe thunderstorm warnings. This one here for Louisa County north of Wapello is just about ready to expire. That'll be done at 12:30. We'll see if there's a new one or an extension, but as of right now, it looks like they're going to let that expire. So we'll let that one go, and we'll call the all clear for that storm southwest of Muscatine for now. Let's go further to the south where we still have an ongoing severe thunderstorm warning for parts of McDonough County. That does include Macomb. Notice the tag on this one at the top of your screen says tornado development is possible with this storm. It's in a little bit better environment here where we've got more moisture, warmer temperatures, and nothing in front of it in terms of any storms that could cut off its supply of energy. So really something we're going to be tracking. And at its current rate here, this is moving to the northeast. Again, we're talking about this storm entering parts of Warren and eventually parts of Knox County, especially if you are south of Interstate 74. So tracking that and watching that very carefully as that storm continues to intensify. We'll get another broader look here too and look at the hail potential. The Macomb storm is just a little bit far away from the radar, so it's hard to see what's going on with that one, but we can certainly look within the line elsewhere, see if there are any other threats that are starting to pop up. So there's our hail tracker. It's no surprise that the most prominent hail is with that storm north of Macomb, so that hail threat eventually also moving to the northeast too, right between Roseville and Avon. In the next 30 minutes or so, looks to be prime time for hail there if that hail growth continues. We also have another hail spot starting to work its way to the northeast here, further north near Conesville. That's moving in. So another thing we're going to have to track as we go through the next few minutes here. That could eventually get into West Liberty, and then Wilton too. So radar lighting up. As of right now, just one severe thunderstorm warning to watch, and that is in McDonough County. I'm going to go through some of the questions, see if we can answer any of those. Chief Meteorologist James Zahara just entered the building, so he's getting all set up as we get ready to continue our coverage here with you. Again, just letting you know what is going on with this severe threat that has escalated a little bit compared to yesterday, what we looked at there. So concerning most, of course, for our Illinois counties, that's where the higher severe weather risk is currently progged to be, and we agree with that. And right now, again, just watching this storm coming out of McDonough County that will get ready to go into southeastern Warren County and eventually southwestern Knox County very shortly. I'm going to see if I can navigate my way back here to the page. Appreciate you guys being here with us and joining us in. Let us know what you're seeing from your hometown too, by the way. If there's anybody in the Macomb region, let us know what you're seeing with the storm that's sitting to the north. Are you seeing hail? Any wind? How does the storm structure look and all that good stuff? Ground reports are very, very helpful. Mary's saying in Galesburg, it's nice and sunny, and you can't even sit outside in cloud in the sky of a nasty storm. So the heat is building in Galesburg, and that's why this storm that is coming out of Macomb could keep intensifying as it moves to the northeast. You're getting that instability factor to build in. So that's why we got to keep a close eye on it. Let's see. Viewers asking, has the risk lowered at all, or is it still the same from this morning's stream? It is still the same. We have not seen any lowering of the risk when it comes to severe storms. If anything, what we've seen is the timetable has moved up by about a half an hour to 45 minutes compared to what we were looking at this morning. So this is coming in just a little bit earlier, but still we are expecting the same impacts. The Storm Prediction Center just updated this an hour ago. So very fresh still in terms of the threats. And you see that 3 out of 5 has not changed one bit when it comes to where we think the more problematic storms will be as we get into this afternoon. That's where, like our viewer just said there, Mary in Galesburg, she says the sun is currently out in Knox County. So that's why, as these storms continue to move east, they'll run into that destabilization with that storm with the sun, and that storm has the potential to intensify further. We can look at the storm energy too, by the way. I'm going to pull the radar back up and we'll be able to see where that storm energy corridor is. It is likely building and it is likely expanding. And there we are popping it up. And you see that corridor right ahead of the storm there in Galesburg starting to build itself up. So that's something we're really going to have to watch. Certainly a lot of dynamics at play as we go into this afternoon. And yeah, could be a bumpy ride here. So we're going to continue tracking this. I know we've got James here in the studio joining me as well for our coverage. Welcome aboard, James.
Welcome aboard, and make sure you get a drink of water, too.
Yes, yes. I'm take advantage of this opportunity right now.
It certainly has been an uptick as far as the threat for severe weather ever since, late last night, but certainly early this morning. Things have changed in a big way, as Andrew have just mentioned. Of course, we had some of those hail-producing thunderstorms in some of our hometowns. And what was interesting, too, if you were encountering any of that activity early on, you noticed that before it actually arrived in your hometown, the skies are pretty dark and brown. Well, that was the dust that came out of the plain states, carried it, and if you had your car outside during early morning's event, well, you've got a lot of dust on your car. So, yeah, that's the reason why we're seeing that. And we could very likely see a little bit more of that, too, from these waves that we continue to see developing not only off to our north and east of the Quad Cities, but more importantly, that wave that we see off to our south and west. So we're growing some of that instability around the area, but the big difference compared to last night with the computer forecast models is we're starting to know some better turning of the winds as well from the surface aloft, what we call shear. And that has kind of grown since then in areas right near the Quad Cities and points south and east. So we've got some pretty decent shear to work with, or turning, that can allow these discrete thunderstorm cells to become supercells. And those are the ones that can track for a number of miles, at least going through multiple counties, carrying with it maybe a good rush of wind coming down from the thunderstorm itself, some large hail. We still have the conditions favorable for at least quarter-size hail, and then we can't rule out the possibility of seeing maybe a brief spin-up or two with this line. Now, what's interesting, when Andrew showed the tornado watch, we're kind of on the western fringe of that watch itself, with a better chance of seeing maybe a few tornadoes in areas more off to the south and east. So in a way, this is somewhat good news, because the fact that the chances may be a bit more isolated around here, whereas farther south and east as you go, the chances kind of increase a wee bit more. But nonetheless, off to our south and west, that is where we'll have to watch that line that's continuing to make its way off to the north and east. Has some good lightning with it, has some hail reports with it as well that we saw in a couple of spots as is. So we'll have to keep an eye on that line as that continues to make its way off to the north and east. So a very volatile situation that we're dealing with here. The atmosphere is quite bubbly. We're seeing a little bit of that sun, helping to notch a little bit more of that instability that is going on. Of course, I think, as you mentioned, Andrew, the severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Louisa, that has been canceled. So we're getting a nice little healthy line of some thunderstorms, kind of going more linear here. And then a little farther south as you go, we're seeing that warning in parts right near Macomb itself. We got a new warning that just popped up here. This is a severe thunderstorm warning, and likely for the potential for seeing some maybe nickel-sized hail, and maybe even the possibility of seeing a good rush of wind as well. So the severe thunderstorm warning has been extended off to the north and east. We're going to keep an eye on that. That is until about 1:30 p.m. So looking at the clock, it's at least an hour, close to an hour, for that warning. And that does include a little part of the immediate Quad Cities itself. Okay, so it is moving pretty quickly. What's the latest speed on that, Andrew? About what, 40?
We are going 45.
45 miles an hour. Okay, so given the time, if we go ahead and put a still on this and put a tracker on this, because, as I always like to say, that is what we do here. We track storms. And as we go ahead and put a little line here and then extend that line to give us an idea of the towns that will be impacted given the speed that we have, and that's what Andrew's doing right now, putting in the numbers as far as given the latest speed and its direction. This is the time we're looking at. Okay, for some of our hometowns. Muscatine, glad you can join us, by the way, on our 8+ app here. 12:43 for you. Aledo, about 12:51. Andalusia, right around 1 o'clock or so. And just 15 after 1 in the Quad Cities of South Pleasant Valley, around 1:26. For the immediate Quad Cities, yeah, we're talking about 40 minutes or so from now, if that line does happen to hold together. So keep in mind, you're going to see the darkness of the clouds. May look a little brown again, like we saw this morning. But you're going to get some pretty decent rain. And like I said, conditions are certainly right that we can see some more hail come out of this line of storms that we've already seen so far in parts of southeastern Iowa. Here's the hail probability, and at least for now, it's on the low side. So if we do see any type of hail, it may be under quarter size. That shouldn't be a problem as far as, creating any type of dents or anything if your car is outside. But it's still favorable to see that size get a little bit larger. And the reason why we say that is because the updrafts that are growing this line of storms is strong enough to produce that kind of size, okay? So that's why we're a little concerned. So even though it doesn't look so bad right now, that could change as the storm continues to make its way from southwest to northeast. As far as any turning that we're seeing in the winds or any type of, let's say that we can go to the the rate of level of tornado shearing or turning that we could see, Andrew, out of that. Let's see, we bring that up.
There we go.
Yeah, it's not too bad right now. Very good. This is our tornado index, our tornado tracker, and it kind of shows where the favorability could be. But you can see with these colors, these light gray colors, that's really on the low end. So that's some good news. That is going to change, I think, for areas more south and east of our viewing area, because I think that's where the greatest instability and turning of the air is going to be taking place. So areas from, I would say, from Peoria, maybe I would say east of Princeton, LaSalle, Peru, going into Bloomington. I think that's going to be the biggest concern for the threat for seeing not only some tornadoes, but maybe one or two strong tornadoes. And we're talking about EF2 or larger. Those are the winds that could be as high as 110 miles an hour spinning this way. Okay, so that's what we're concerned about when it comes to the threat for tornadoes. But nonetheless, isolated chance, at least a brief spin up, that can't be ruled out just because we have some at least halfway decent turning of the winds around here. So here are the warnings that we see. We got that one located just north of Macomb. We've got this one that we see just south and west of the Quad Cities. And there's that line moving very quickly from southwest to northeast. So yeah, we've kind of advanced our coverage here just a little bit, maybe about 45 minutes or so. But nonetheless, we are still under that gun of seeing some more activity on maybe another line that could be developing later on this afternoon. But if and only if we're able to get a little bit more sun once this wave moves on by, okay? Because there's still a little bit more sun, as you can see with our visible satellite. This is actually what you see from space and looking down. This is what you're seeing, and you can see the break that we're noticing off to the south and west. Now, that could eventually add to more additional thunderstorms as we get into the afternoon hours, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. So we had that one wave early this morning. Here's the other wave coming in from the south and west. And with that break that we see here, we could potentially see another one. In fact, the things are kind of bubbling. You can see just south and east of Kirksville. So that is something we'll have to very much keep an eye on as we make our way through the afternoon hours. I think and Andrew, you can jump on in here. I think when it comes to the end of this threat, I think we're still looking maybe around 5 o'clock or so, especially for our hometowns well east of the Quad Cities.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you're talking about a Princeton and those areas that are in Putnam County, southeast of Princeton, outer eastern edge, that's where you're looking at that later end for that threat. But still enough time, like we just showed you on that visible satellite, things are still cooking ahead of this line where we're building up that storm energy, and the wind fields, especially southeast of the Quad Cities, are a little bit more favorable for seeing some of that rotation. So it's another quick hitting event like we saw on Friday. It's just earlier in the day now, which is actually to our benefit because now our spotters can actually see what's going on with the storms, whereas at night it's very difficult to see the structure, to see the rotation. We have that to our benefit here today, and I think that's really going to be helpful as some of these storms get spinning here with some of this energy.
That's right, because I know I'll keep stressing this. In fact, as a team, we keep stressing this, is that, you know, there's only so much that we can see on the radar itself. Right. So to have those spotters out there, to even have the Beast out there as well, and I believe the Beast is going to be going out in just a little bit, yep. I believe. Just to have those eyes out there makes a huge difference in warning certain towns that may be impacted or potentially be impacted by any type of severe weather threat. In this case, maybe the potential of seeing some hail, or even when it comes to maybe a brief spin up as well. Once again, Andrew went ahead and put out the tracker here for that line that's under a severe thunderstorm warning, and that does include parts of the immediate Quad Cities, and we're still talking about maybe 14 or 15 after the hour. Okay, it's 12:43 right now, so we got maybe about a half an hour for that line to be coming on through. Now, by looking at from the information from the National Weather Service, no other reports have come in yet, but we're kind of in a very wide open field here, so keep that in mind. There still could be some pretty decent hail that may be falling, maybe not close to quarter size, but there are projections that it could be that way, including the possibility of seeing some pretty good winds. Once again, hail probability still looks pretty low, but we're going to keep an eye right around New Boston and maybe even outside of Muscatine as that continues to make its way from southwest to northeast. Now, there are indications that it may not reach quarter size, but if those updrafts that help kind of create those hailstones, the size of those hailstones, if it gets any stronger, and there's a potential it could, and once again, the updrafts are growing these thunderstorms, then yeah, we could start seeing some better colors out of there as well. I believe this is out of Muscatine, and wow, the sky's pretty dark over there, Andrew.
Yeah, that is
Wow.
some very dark sky. We've seen that a few times already this morning, and it looks like maybe some of the rain has already started there too as well, and probably some dust being mixed into that. So another dirty rain event falling through, and it looks like you can actually see some of the rain bands blowing there on the left-hand side of your screen too as that's moving through. And actually on radar, that's the strongest part of the storm on reflectivity is sitting just to the northwest of downtown Muscatine right now, also where the most lightning is contained as well.
Yeah, very, very much so. So if you're watching us in Muscatine, yeah, take it easy out there. Make sure you kind of stay away from windows because it's not just the rain that we're dealing with here, but maybe the potential for seeing a little bit of hail and maybe a good rush of wind to go with it as well. So once again, you guys in Muscatine, you're under that severe thunderstorm warning. Got to get through this wave for you guys. And given the speed of it, I'm looking at the live radar as well. I think give it another maybe 5 more minutes or so. And the worst of this wave will be out of your way. We're seeing some claps of thunder, especially just west of Muscatine itself, but we could be getting some nice wind. You got the velocity mode up there. Let's go ahead to velocity mode if we can. And we're going to get this up in just a little bit. And we're kind of are seeing some kind of a demarcation there, aren't we, Andrew, as far as just outside of Muscatine, some nice color of green in there being noticed outside of Muscatine.
Yeah, that's what I was noticing too. And I'm kind of trying to look at the other velocity modes here too, because there is a little bit of broad rotation. It's kind of hard to see.
Is it?
But right kind of just north of town, kind of right in that general vicinity. Yeah. It's a little hard to see on this display, but I've got another display I'm looking at, and there's just a little bit of broad rotation north of Muscatine, just due west of Fairport.
Okay, sure.
That storm.
Okay. I think that's what we're talking about right there. We'll have to keep an eye on that. That is for sure. Oh, are you talking about a little bit more to the north and west here?
Yeah, I would say right up there. Right
up
kind
here.
Of in that
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds, yeah. That seems interesting because that has changed just a little bit. Right there. So yeah, we definitely have to definitely keep an eye on that. So it's good to have that velocity mode in play given all this activity is coming on through. Once again, this is Muscatine right here. Bluegrass, the Quad City is located here, but that is some really heavy rain that is coming down in Muscatine itself. Given the amount of moisture that has been available, certainly a quick 1/4 inch of rain can't be ruled out with this wave. It is moving pretty quickly, so that's kind of maybe at best that we could get out of it. We're going to get the rainfall intensity here, and yeah, you can see how that rain is really coming down with the rates maybe over an inch that could be seen. But keep in mind, that's if the storm is staying right in place for a good hour. So if it was in that situation, oh yeah, we're talking about some street flooding going on, but this is hauling itself about, 45 miles an hour or so. So you could get a 1/4 inch out of it or less, maybe not more, but you can see the visibility actually starting to improve nicely there, Andrew, in downtown Muscatine.
Yeah, like we saw on Friday, these are quick hitters. So they're in and out, in a matter of 15, 20 minutes because the flow aloft is so fast with this area of low pressure right by. But that's also kind of a downside in that if we do end up getting some kind of perhaps a tornado warning, you really have to be on your toes. You can't be dilly-dallying around deciding where you're going to be going for shelter. You really have to make that decision very, very quickly if that were to get issued. So keep that in mind too as we continue tracking these storms for you. Looks like they just put an update out to that polygon, kind of trimming a couple of hometowns out from the south and from the west, but still calling for the wind threat that is still going to be there. 60-mile-per-hour winds expected with that storm. And yeah, you can see if see if I can throw the velocity data back on here and get us at least more of an easier color table. We'll stick with this one. You can see there is definitely a little corridor, some pockets of some heavier winds south of Muscatine. And now that makes sense as to why that warning extends so far south and so far east. And we did see some good shaking on that Muscatine camera earlier, along with the banding of the rain waves moving through. So no doubt there's a good rush of wind that's coming in with that line of storms.
And with that in mind, we always have to be concerned. And that's a great loop that you have going on right there. I really like what we see just right there around the Rock Island, Mercer County border. You can see how that one wave is kind of really pushing itself out. So yeah, we could be potentially talking about those winds getting over 50, maybe close to 60 miles an hour. And kind of like we saw on Friday evening, we can't rule out the possibility that we could get some brief power outages as well. So, just keep that in mind. Have a flashlight ready to go. Make sure that your phone is actually fully charged, because you could be in a situation where if you lose power, at least you got your phone to keep in touch with us while this event is taking place right around Muscatine and points to our south and west. So that's what we're really concerned about when it comes to this particular wave. But you can see, especially right here, watch it, boom, right there. We'll do it one more time here. Right there, that's where we're kind of seeing a pretty strong, intense line that's pushing its way across the area. So if you're watching us right now, I'd say north of Aledo, maybe near Viola, Preemption, Reynolds, I would say, you got a chance for maybe seeing that strong wind. You can see it kind of rushing its way, right? Boom, right there. That's kind of what we're going to keep an eye on. And given the movement of that could certainly graze the immediate quad cities, or at least point southward, especially around the Milan area. There is that possibility as that continues to make its way off to the east. But this is right now the biggest concern going on with this line as it continues to make its way off to the north and east. We put our tracker on once again. We've been kind of focusing on maybe about 15 minutes after the hour for parts of the quad cities. That's still looking pretty good, maybe slowing down just a little bit only because the speed of this line is about 45 miles an hour. It may be dropping just a little bit, and that's the reason why it's going from 115 to 119. But nonetheless, around Milan around 115, Andalusia about 5 or 6 minutes after the hour. And Alexis, you got just a few more minutes to go, and you'll be impacted by that line as it makes its way off to the north and east. So the wind's a big concern with this. Hail's a big concern with this. That has been the case from that first wave that came in earlier on this morning as well. We have an actual icon. This is a wind icon that determines we can get the information that how strong the winds actually have been. And this was an estimated wind gust of 50 to 55 miles an hour that actually took place about 20 minutes ago or so, 25 minutes ago from that particular line itself. So that's always a big concern with that line coming on through, that we can get those strong gusts and we can get some brief power outages out of that as well. If we made our way, and if we go back to those storm reports again, Andrew, to our north, of course, we had some hail-producing thunderstorms we had earlier on in the day, and you can see the numerous amounts of reports. These are all hail reports that took place just around Davenport, even around Cove Valley, only pea size, but we did get reports just north of the Quad Cities, even around Clinton, of even marble size that took place as well. And all that taking place early this morning in parts of the immediate Quad Cities and just to the north and east. So that was the big concern that we had with some of those storms that took place. And we still have the right conditions in the atmosphere to produce more hail, more wind, and that potential of maybe seeing a brief spin up as well. The conditions have really changed, have really upgraded since real late last night going into tomorrow morning. So that's why our biggest concern is with these lines that will be moving on through. So we certainly had that early this morning in most of our hometowns. It was projected to be a bit more north of the Quad Cities, but because of the increase of instability that we saw covering the viewing area throughout the early morning, we kind of had an indication that, well, you know what, this may be a little bit larger, a little bit more widespread for most of our hometowns during the morning hours. So that was the line that came in about 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Pretty good convection that took place, indicated by the lightning that we had from this. And then it made its way off to the north and east. And as it reached some of the cooler air, it kind of started breaking down a little bit as it made its way toward the Rockford area. But even with these waves moving on through, it still hasn't broken down the level of instability to create some more hail, more wind across the area. The only thing that we're really concerned about now as we get through the daytime heating is that we're now noticing maybe a possible turn in the air from the surface to loft that could maybe produce a nice supercell thunderstorm, and thus maybe the possibility of maybe seeing a brief spin up. So that's kind of the big change that we've been noticing throughout this day or so. Now the conditions certainly are much more favorable off to the south and east for that, but nonetheless, you know, there still is that very small chance that we could be seeing that around here. But you can see with this line right here, what we're concerned about here is maybe seeing some hail, but maybe a good rush of wind out of this as well that could be approaching around 60 miles an hour. So that's part of that severe thunderstorm warning that Andrew has popped up for parts of the immediate Quad Cities, stretching his way into parts of Mercer County, even around Warren and Henderson County. That is until 1:30. So we have another 35 minutes of coverage, at least when it comes to this warning, and then we'll have to keep an eye on the potential of seeing some more warnings as well. But yeah, what really stuck out, Andrew, is the fact that they have kind of really upgraded that tornado potential for areas really east of the Quad Cities, especially in parts of central and eastern Iowa, ready off to the south and east.
Yeah, that was the big surprise when I woke up this morning, is yesterday we went from no tornado threat, or zones, if you will, on the map, to now an escalation of this 3 out of 4 at the very last minute. And that was all due in part, like James said, was that increase in sunshine, more of that storm energy, and better low-level moisture. We've been watching the dew points creep up in the last couple of hours, close to 54, 55 degrees. You want to see a dew point right around 55 or higher to get a good tornado threat going. And that's what we're seeing in some of these areas that are south and east of the Quad Cities. Now, here's another wild card for us to throw in, James, and that is a boundary sitting right here along Interstate 80, because look at the big temperature difference, 40s and 30s to the north, 70s to the south. This is kind of acting like a warm front situation on the Illinois side of the river. And if any one of those storms coming up from the southwest can kind of latch itself onto that warm front, that could also lead to a very short-term tornado potential as well.
I can't help but laugh because, like, I bet you he's going to bring up the temperatures across the area, and sure enough, and it's really amazing what we're seeing here in the contrast in temperatures, because you go to Dubuque and Stockton, you got upper 30s, yeah, and then you get as far south. And I'm sure it can be, maybe it's being covered by the crawl, but like 72 over in Macomb. So we've had this boundary to just near the I-80 corridor, and because of that, you're dealing with that coming together of the air to kind of produce these elevated thunderstorms that have been going on, and that's why this has kind of played a big role as far as seeing these hail-producing thunderstorms that have been going on across the area. Now, the question is how far north is this boundary going to go? It may not go that far north, okay? Given that storm system, the core of that system coming in from the southwest and pushing northeastward, it may bump up another county or two, maybe at best. And that's where our temperatures, which in some areas, like we see in Geneseo, the Quad Cities, even around Muscatine, upper 40s, lower 50s, that could bump in maybe a good 10 or even 15 degrees. There's a possibility in 30 minutes or so. That's how quick it can actually happen. But because of that boundary nearby, that certainly is a focal point for seeing some more growth in these storms that may be going on. And when you have a lot of cold air aloft, especially with some of that cold air just to the north of us, but acting as we got some more cold air aloft, that is certainly conducive in producing some nice hail out of this as well. So we'll see how that wave that we've been showing you just south and west of the Quad Cities, it behaves itself as it continues to make its way off to the north and east. But what a contrast, Andrew, when it comes to those temperatures that we are dealing with.
Yeah, it really is. And one thing that caught my eyes, we were just talking about the potential. Notice the latest update now, just above James's head a moment ago there, we have this tornado development possible tag now on that severe thunderstorm warning that's racing into the Quad Cities metro. So you know what that means? It's time to start poking around the velocity data, that wind data, to see if there's anything in particular that perhaps the National Weather Service is kind of keeping their eye on. We were watching that area north of Muscatine earlier, and it's fairly broad right now the way it looks on radar. I don't see anything too tight. in terms of that, but that's worth watching here.
Very much so too. I mean, if we had to kind of pinpoint that, it may be right there, could be along the river itself. We're kind of looking at the reds and greens and the brightness between both of them as well, kind of seeing if there is maybe some type of possible circulation that could really take place. And as Andrew just mentioned, very broad that we're seeing given what we're noticing on the radar itself. And, we could be seeing something maybe right around here that could show some development. We'll see how that turns out. They really never kind of explained specifically what area we may be talking about, Andrew?
Yeah, there's no kind of highlight, if you will, in terms of the region of this storm of what we're looking at. And it's going to get a little dirty here as this storm gets into the Quad Cities because we're getting closer to the radar. We're going to pick up all of these buildings, all of these taller landmarks, some trees. So we're really going to have to look very closely at the radar, kind of like examining it with a magnifying glass, really looking at the finer details of the scan, because now that it's getting closer to the Quad Cities, we're seeing some of those finer details. And yeah, I would say southwest of Bluegrass, I'm with you there in terms of where the stronger winds are currently when it comes to what's coming inbound. So that, I think, is going to be an area to watch right there. And that's just kind of on the edge of that warning. I'll pop that back up so you can see the polygon. It doesn't include Bluegrass proper right now. It's just to your southwest. But yeah, I would say somewhere right kind of in that vicinity where James was just highlighting. And really, for that matter, anywhere along the line. I mean, you could go all the way down the line here through Aledo. I'm in Alexis too, and you're really just going to have to kind of watch and see where could we see these reds and these greens, the brighter ones anyway, come close together for a period of time to produce some more conductive rotation with these storms. So really something we're going to have to track and watch as this comes in. And again, we showed you that warm front sitting right along the I-80 corridor. As it usually does this time of year. It's kind of have a habit of doing that. It has nothing to do with the interstate, but everything to do with our geography here and the landmarks that we mentioned. But yeah, it's still got that tagged as the tornado possible.
I want to go and throw a note out to the booth. I've been kind of checking our team's conversation here because we're on the 8+ app right now. Okay, and given the fact that these storms are now just south and west of the Quad Cities, it wouldn't be a bad idea to not only stay on the 8+ app, but also go to network as well. So we can make sure that we're getting the word out regarding this line that continues to make its way off to the north and east, where this line still has that possibility of some type of maybe tornado development. So that's what we're really concerned about. So let myself or Andrew know in our ears on our IFB to make sure that we're able to go to that, because I think we're going to get this warning that's going to extend maybe more off to the north and east here. All right, thanks, Charlie. Charlie's going to be working on that. He is in the booth right now. And sure enough, there's a new warning that just popped up.
There's our new warning. And we're also chatting with weather anchor Peter Warner. He's thinking a beast-wise Kewaunee-ish region right in there, Henry County.
Sure.
So we'll go ahead and we'll get him on the road and ready to go. And yeah, there's your new severe thunderstorm warning. And notice it's that canary color, that color that shows you that the tornado development is possible. So that is definitely concerning, and that includes the Quad Cities Metro, the whole Quad Cities Metro, for that fact, now until 1:45, winds of 60 miles an hour. Shall we go ahead and put a tracker on that one too?
Absolutely,
now that we've got this new warning
ahead.
In place, and we'll see exactly where it's going to take us. So I'm going to actually do the squall one again here, just because this is a little bit of a larger area, and we'll go that to the northeast. We're going to ask our folks on our 8+ app to stand by while we have our on-air folks cut in here at any moment. We want to make sure we get everybody a proper introduction here, so stand by.
All right, good day, everyone. Chief Meteorologist James Zahara here with me, Andrew Stusky, in the Storm Track 8 Weather Department. We're keeping an eye on this line of storms that continues to swiftly make its way from southwest to northeast. And as you can see, we do have a couple of yellow polygons there indicating a severe thunderstorm warning. But what makes these warnings so unique is that there's a possibility of some type of tornado development that may be going on, as indicated by our sign here, coming in from the southwest and pushing his way north and east. This storm has had a history of producing some small hail, but now we're in a position right now where we're seeing a nice, kind of a nice turning of the air, which is going to allow this line to continue to hold together and continue to make its way from southwest to northeast. And our biggest concern right now is any type of rotation that could actually maybe even drop a tornado or so. But right now we're dealing with some good wind, some good lightning, some very heavy rain, and you can see it's only minutes away from the immediate Quad Cities itself. With me once again, Andrew Stusky. He's been kind of monitoring all these storms ever since Good Morning Quad Cities, and we'll continue to monitor these storms as they make their way off to the north and east. Real quick on our tracker, because that is what we do, folks. We track storms around the immediate Quad Cities. Taking a look at the time right here, we may be talking maybe near 1:30, Aledo around just about 10 after 1 itself, and then around Clinton, maybe around 2 if it does continue to hold together. Andrew, one of the things that we're keeping an eye on too is the wind velocity that's going on, and I think that's going to be a very common mode of element that we're going to continue to watch as we make our way through the afternoon hours.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch what the velocity is doing, especially just west of the Quad Cities metro. You can see a little bit of some broad twist in here in this particular part of the data. I want to emphasize we have no tornado warning right now, but the severe thunderstorm warning is tagged that tornado development is possible. And why it is tagged that way is we actually have a boundary, a warm front sitting right across Interstate 80, and as this line of storms works in and interacts with that boundary, that's where we could get that quick spin-up tornado potential. We still believe the stronger tornado potential is southeast of the Quad Cities, where we're talking about those stronger, more violent tornadoes being a possibility on an isolated basis. But here, we can't rule up that quick spin up as that line comes in. You look at the velocity data showing us wind going away and towards the radar, and yeah, we're seeing a little bit of that closeness situation just to the west of the immediate Quad Cities here, south of Interstate 80, where it looks like we've got some broad rotation that is still ongoing. As we take you down the rest of the line, because this whole line has that tag of tornado possible, we don't see anything, at least right now, that sticks out to us further to the south from Aledo to Lexus to Galesburg. This is mainly just wind of up to 60 miles an hour when you go that far south, but especially on this northern edge, kind of where that line gets a little bit more curvature to it, that's where we're going to be concerned about that short-term, just kind of a brief, quick tornado threat as it comes through too. And we look at the reflectivity, yeah, we don't see any prevalent notching or circulation type looking echoes on the reflectivity data, which I'm showing you right now. But certainly I think the wind threat is there. And if there were to be a circulation, I'm going to bet it's going to be with that stronger storm right here. You can see the lightning data too, how we go from a lot of lightning near Wilton and west of Andalusia to hardly any lightning at all on the southern extent of that line. So it's definitely the northern half of that line that appears to be the strongest right now, James.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it any better than that. I think that's a really good way of putting it. You always look at where that lightning core is located, and that's always a place where you could potentially be talking about, a lot of the, keep in mind all the raindrops, they have a charge with them, and usually when you see that rapidness of lightning in one location, that could be an indication of, the updrafts and downdrafts working very quickly together, maybe even the turning of the air aloft as well. So that's why that's something to keep an eye on with that part of the storm located now just west of Bluegrass, but looks like we'll avoid Bluegrass as that continues to make its way off to the north. This is out of Galesburg, and right now we're just talking about some nice rain that may be going on. I don't think the wind is too much of a concern by the camera alone, and even looking at the trees there in the background, that is not too much of a concern when it comes to Galesburg itself. But this is actually the second wave of two that has made its way through Galesburg itself. But right now, all indications are that things are looking okay for now over in Galesburg. Like I said, we don't see any real hail out there at all, but what we're concerned about from this particular line is right here. I think, Jimmy, just east of Durant. It will be interesting to see, because keep in mind, folks, there's only so much that we can see on the radar here, but we could be talking about some little couplets that may be developing, especially right here just south and east of Durant. Here's the Quad Cities. There's Walcott right there, and that may actually hit the truck stop over there, or just outside of it, as that continues to make its way off to the north and east. So we've got a couplet right here, another one that was that Andrew put together just around the Bluegrass area, just west. That one may be making its way off to the north and east, kind of trying to get itself together. So that's kind of what we're concerned about this particular line. We're noticing a lot of lightning within these areas as well, indicating there's some good circulation that's going on. Updrafts, downdrafts are going on. So that's kind of something we have to keep an eye on with these two waves that we are noticing. And right now, that appears to be the biggest concern with this line, because we have not just one, we have two thunderstorm warnings that are going on, but it's really from this part of that line that we're concerned about. Now, of course, here's the immediate Quad Cities that we have here. Here's that thunderstorm warning that is, refresh my memory here, Andrew, it's till 1:45?
Let's see if our query is going to work on this. Give me 1 second here. Yep, till 1:45.
Okay. Yep. And once again, the velocity mode is around 28 miles an hour, so that's not too bad, but that's kind of give us in a broad area what we're kind of noticing with the winds. That's all different that we see, maybe just off to our south and west. But you can see right here, some bright green that we see here, some red. Now, that could be maybe a nice little downdraft that may be going on right here. But nonetheless, that's something we have to really keep an eye on, really, as we make our way into these next few minutes or so, Andrew.
Yeah, that velocity data certainly caught my attention, and that is likely where that warm front is kind of lying, where that storm could latch onto that, where you're getting these little bright areas of green combined to those bright areas of red. One that really sticks out on the radar, at least right now, is directly west of Walcott, kind of where we're watching this right here. You see where that teal is in the velocity data. That's a very strong wind signal there, next to a strong wind signal in the opposite direction, just near Walcott. So we don't have anything confirmed right now, but that is one thing that we're going to be watching right there. It's been a fairly consistent little piece of velocity too, starting just south of Wilton, and then it really kind of tightened itself up together as it got south of Stockton, and is now just directly west of Walcott. So kind of highlighting on radar again where we're talking about. It's this right here that really got my attention just a few minutes ago. And it also has the attention of the National Weather Service too. It's almost kind of like a line of rotation. We don't see this very often, but I think it's due to the setup, and the National Weather Service is talking about this too, where you've got this cooler air that's sitting over the metro here with very warm air to the south of it. So that's why we're seeing this kind of a radar presentation where that circulation is almost in a line, and then you get these little spin-ups or these notches or couplets, what we call them, where these winds are close together on the leading edge of that line. So
and I think maybe getting that kind of that circulation, because keep in mind, as if you've been watching us on the 8+ app, Andrew went ahead, we showed the temperatures. Okay, and let's quickly show those temperatures. And because we're seeing a big contrast in temperatures along a boundary, okay? So along and north of that boundary, and look at the numbers that we're seeing here. We got temperatures in the 60s, it was in the 70s around Macomb just about a few minutes ago. But we're kind of dealing with a boundary right here. So along that boundary in north, you're likely getting an easterly wind. South of that boundary, you're getting more of a southerly wind. So we're seeing this convergence of air and even a turn of that air as well that may be taking place around the area. Also to keep in mind too is that we're starting to see an increase in dew point temperatures. That's always a big key as far as not only the level of instability, but the type of favorability when it comes to maybe seeing a brief spin up. Okay, and we're kind of seeing kind of a little bit of I want to call it a moisture tongue, I guess you can say, in Peoria, Macomb, Galesburg, with these dew points in the lower 50s, and it's trying to push its way in to that boundary that we've been noticing just west of the Quad Cities itself. So seeing some elements here that are a bit concerning for us, for maybe that possibility of that brief spin up that may be taking place. Now, also, if you're just joining us as well, not only are we under that severe threat for a good chunk of the Quad Cities, but to be more specific, we also have plenty of watches that are going on as well. We have a tornado watch that is out from areas around the Quad Cities itself. You can see around the northwestern tip of this watch. That goes on until, I believe, going the evening hours or so, Andrew?
Yeah, going to go until 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. So this should be out of here pretty soon for us, but really the focus for better development of tornadoes, especially strong tornadoes, EF2 or stronger, is going to be more off to the south and east. So Peoria, Bloomington, maybe around Charleston, Kankakee, really in that area, that's a big concern. So if you have any family or friends out there, you may want to give them a heads up because things could change in a big way. This is the latest that came out this morning of some significant maybe tornado activity within this area. So from LaSalle, Peoria, points south and east, this is where we have a much better chance of seeing some a few tornadoes, but one or two of them may be strong EF2 plus tornadoes. There is that possibility. So that's the big concern for us. So we're certainly in that likelihood of seeing maybe a brief spin up, though I think the coverage may be, the chances are very isolated for that. But given what we've been seeing on the radar itself, that may be changing because there are indications, there's a tag out for these thunderstorm warnings that we have, that there is some type of development that could take place in the form of a brief tornado. This is our reflectivity mode, and you can see we're kind of noticing two areas here. Now, of course, here's the thunderstorm warnings that we have. This until 1:30, you can see it's already breaking down in parts of Rock Island and Mercer County, so that's some good news. So we're just getting some nice rain here. Haven't been seeing much turning going on, but we're really concerned is this warning right here, especially just west of the Quad Cities. This line that we're seeing here, that's a thunderstorm warning that goes on until around 1:45. And you can see the tag that was indicated, given the algorithms that we have going into the system, that there's a tag here indicating a tornado development is possible, especially within this band that we're noticing right here. We continue to go from reflectivity mode going to velocity mode. Velocity mode, once again, gives us the wind signatures that may be going on with the advancement of this particular storm. So we're kind of keeping an eye on this area right here. And it's a nice little line. Not seeing much of the little couplets that we saw just recently, Andrew, but nonetheless, we're seeing that contrast. And for that matter, can't rule out at least some strong winds. If they're not turning, you certainly could get some nice strong winds out of this, especially just north of Interstate 80 is just west of 60th Avenue there. That is north of Walcott. So that's a big concern that we have. It's already making its way around the truck stop right there over in Walcott itself. And this is actually right near the truck stop itself. Mm-hmm. Kind of interesting. You see, Andrew, just in the upper left-hand corner of that camera shot, boy, it's really dark out there.
Yeah, those skies are really, really starting to get dark, and that's where we're seeing some of that strongest rainfall rate. We also have some hail potential. Right now it's sub-severe hail potential. We're talking probably pea-sized hail just southwest of Walcott itself, but that's going to be moving directly over this webcam location, likely momentarily. And yeah, you can see the visibility in the distance is also going down too. This part of the storm also contains the most amount of lightning, so that's why the hail size is certainly there. You can see that cluster of lightning on your screen. I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit closer so we can keep that live look for a second. So this is a zoom right into Walcott on the left box, and you can see that cluster of lightning just to the west of town there, indicating where the strongest portion of that storm is currently moving through. We can put the hail tracker on there, the hail probability. Yeah, there is definitely some there. Not the highest, but could be some pea-sized hail with that storm as it's moving in. We were also watching the velocity data too, indicating where that strong corridor of winds is. And yeah, there's a little bit of some modest rotation in there. Another little spot that's developed southeast of Walcott, right along 160th Street. That is just west of Interstate 280, and that would be to the northeast of Bluegrass. So that'll be another spot we're going to be keeping an eye on with the radar. But yeah, some strong winds certainly look like they're moving into Walcott itself. Let's see if we can poke around in here and bring up some of the velocity data. About 30 to 50 miles per hour in that section of the velocity data. Now you can see it's moved on to the northeast.
Yeah, and the gate-to-gate shear, as we kind of indicated too on Friday evening's event, the numbers there actually are pretty low too. So in a way, that's a good sign, okay? If we get this to about, what, 10 or 15,
Yeah.
then that's a big concern for a real good chance for seeing some type of development that may be taking place. Just heard a little rumble of thunder just outside our station, actually. But that's something that to keep in mind. So we'll certainly keep reminding you about this, or certainly defining what our gate-to-gate shear is in comparison to the velocity mode itself to kind of give us a good indication if there's any type of broad rotation that may be taking place there. So this is really the biggest concern that we have as we're kind of, once again, in our velocity mode. And it's right here where we're a little concerned about with those storms off to the northeast. Andrew, if we can do this as well, let's kind of widen this shot, go back to reflectivity mode, because, you know, we've got a nice little band of some storms that are just near the Galesburg area as well. There's no warning out, but I've been noticing on the RD level X radar too, that we're noticing a lot of activity here. Not much as far as a lightning that we see, but still some very heavy rain, a good downdraft coming down from these storms that can't be ruled out as well. But once again, no warning out as it makes its way through Galesburg, getting ready to pass by Abingdon. But if you're watching us in Rova country, this is in northern Knox County, but be on guard for that as that makes its way off to the south and east. And Andrew went ahead and put a tracker on this. So if you're watching us in Knoxville, 20 after, which is pretty much where you, it's pretty, well, I'm not sure about Knoxville, because Knoxville's a bit more, well, Knoxville's right about here.
Yep.
So I would say, you know, it's certainly in a minute or so, given the time. This is once again out of Galesburg, and they're getting some pretty good rain right here. Not sure what part of Galesburg are we, yeah. By the looks of it, with the skies in the background, this may be positioned just east of that line that we just mentioned, I think. But nonetheless, we're getting some pretty good rain out of this. It could be a little pea-sized hail out of this as well, just because of the air aloft being pretty cold enough that it can should be a little bit ripe in producing that. And I also been noticing too, Andrew, is in southern Knox County, a nice little bend that we see there. That could be a nice rush of wind that's coming down from that particular line. But once again, there's no warning out for that storm.
Yeah, I like what you pointed out there. You see that good bend right here in the south part of Knox County, south of Galesburg. That could certainly be winds up to 50 miles an hour. Again, you need a 58 or 59 plus mile per hour wind gusts to start getting severe thunderstorm warnings to be issued. But certainly, I think a good rush of wind is a real good possibility with that part of the storm. We'll go to the velocity data, and again, a little bit of grace because we're far away from the radar, so the details can be a little bit fuzzy here, but still we're seeing that leading edge with some of those brighter oranges right there near McQuon and southeast of Galesburg. That's the leading edge of those stronger winds, likely right now just limited to 40 to 50 miles an hour, but still that's enough that could cause a little bit of a disturbance to some of your property. Now I know it's a little early for patio furniture, but now maybe some of your flags or other decorative items could get a good rush of wind moving through them, and you see that's quickly moving down Interstate 74. Further to the north, you're also still likely seeing a good rush of wind moving through with that part, especially near Sherrard. That's where we're seeing kind of some of that stronger velocity signal. I'm going to switch it over here just to see what that wind field looks like. And yeah, we're definitely seeing some good winds rushing through that region there too. And remember, you're under a severe thunderstorm warning for that part of the storm for that reason. 60-mile-an-hour winds and just slightly smaller than quarter-size hail. Thankfully, not much rotation there, at least right now. That looks like that threat continues to be centered a little bit further to the north.
That's interesting too. We're noticing that the polygon, intensity of that polygon for areas near Davenport northward has minimized a little bit. That's good news.
Yeah, we've gone out of now that tornado possible tag to just a regular severe thunderstorm warning based on what we're seeing with that data. So that's a spot of good news for sure.
But nonetheless, the warning is still out there for a reason, and that is a concern about the wind and some hail that may be coming out of that as well. So once again, we're not the ones that issue these warnings. They come from the National Weather Service. So these guys are, of course, keeping a close eye on that line as it makes its way from southwest to northeast. But the warning south of that is the one that still has that possibility of seeing some type of broad rotation. But given the spotters that we have out there, as well as what we're noticing here on the radar, doesn't look like that appears to be the case right now. But that can certainly change. Can't stress enough that even though we're not seeing too much of that on the radar, if we have eyes out there, that certainly can give us a better description of really what is taking place. But that is some fairly good news. And let's point out, too, here, Andrew, that this is the second wave that has made its way through the Quad Cities itself. And there still could be one more wave to go, possibly sometime later on this afternoon.
Yeah, and that's what we've been noticing is these pieces of energy have been coming in waves. We had one early this morning, then we had another one move through right around 8, 9 o'clock, right in that time frame. And now we've got this third wave coming through. But what we've been talking about all morning is the amount of clearing that we've been watching on our satellite. So I'm going to switch back to that source and show you what that looks like. Here's, of course, the line of storms that's moving through right now. And ahead of that, yeah, we've had a little bit of clearing that we've been having to watch for the storm intensity. But behind this line, we've got another little area of clearing that's going to be coming in. And that's another piece of energy that's also going to have to move through. Right. So as we put the radar perspective back on there, yeah, you can see it's fairly quiet. Kirksville points to the east, but there's another little impulse of energy that has to come through with that we're going to be watching for that potential that could drive another round of storms here later on.
That's right. And so the question is going to be certainly how much available energy, convective energy, will be available for possibly that final wave. We can still see some pretty good convective energy located along and east of the river, but especially just east of the river. So it is there. The question is how much of that next line, and hopefully the last line that we see, is going to take advantage of that convective energy, because that will certainly play a big role as to the coverage that we could be seeing on that. And we still have some pretty decent instability to work with, given that we do have a little sun to our south and west. And combine that with the boundary that's located right now along the I-80 corridor, points south, we have a little bit more moisture available out there, indicated by dew points in a narrow band right along where that thunderstorm line is, of dew points in the lower 50s. But also when you factor that in with the boundary itself, that's an indication of maybe some type of turning of the air that may be going on as well. Here is our eagle eye. This is located on top of the Call building in downtown Davenport. This is looking across the river. There's a Centennial Bridge into Rock Island itself, and already starting to see some of that rain kind of fingering its way through Davenport. Actually, maybe noticing a little sun off to the west as well. And then this is the eagle eye camera that is on top of our station here in Moline itself. And I believe, is that looking, I think, more west, I believe. Directly down 16th here, it's kind of looking more south that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And you can see how dark the skies are getting. And keep this in mind, too, like we saw earlier today. If the sky looks kind of brownish, all right, there's actually some dust that's being carried by these clusters of thunderstorms that continue to make their way from southwest to northeast. So like early this morning, if you were driving around town or had the car parked outside, once that wave of storms moved on through, you probably noticed that your car is full of dust. Yeah, this dust, like we saw on Friday evening, is being carried from the Central Plains. That's where it has been awfully dry, and it's being caught by these storms and carrying the way north and east. So that's why those car wash lines are going to get awfully busy, possibly as early as tomorrow. Because keep in mind, once this wave moves on through, you know, with these line of storms that we're noticing, we're eventually going to get on the cool side of this system, and any moisture that will be available from that is very likely going to be a cold rain mixed with snow and changing to all snow. And we could be talking about a little accumulation, kind of what we woke up to on Sunday morning. That may be covering some of the grassy surfaces. And right now indications are maybe an inch, possibly 2 inches. There is that possibility. Given the amount of moisture now we're seeing that's available, that is certainly a possibility going into later tonight, especially after midnight. We expect this snow to maybe change over to all snow, like I said, sometime around maybe mid-evening or so, and then continue until sometime well after midnight and set the tone for that. So here's our future track and even the storm energy that we put in. But you can see where, as we get to about 9 p.m., you can see how that snow behind the system, much more, bit more widespread, Andrew, that we saw compared to what we saw yesterday around here.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a situation that was kind of similar to this past Sunday.
Yeah.
Where you see that quick change over to that wet, heavy snow, and it'll start accumulating in the grassy surfaces, perhaps an inch or two by the time we get to 3, 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. But what I'm liking about this situation versus Sunday is we had 70s yesterday widespread.
Right.
And then today we had these widespread 60s, especially here in the Quad Cities and points south. So that's good news, at least for me tomorrow morning when I'm commuting to work, and that I'm not expecting any snow on the roads, but it'll be wet. But if you're going to be driving later tonight, visibility, that could be an issue.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we don't have a weather impact alert come early tomorrow morning for commuters out there. It's just ground's way too warm. Pavement's way too warm. So grassy surfaces, different story. If you leave your car outside overnight, maybe give yourself a little time to brush off that wet snow. Okay, but otherwise it's going to melt pretty quickly heading into before daybreak tomorrow morning. So getting back to our severe weather threat, once again, this is, by the way, a picture of, I believe, the I-74 bridge that we're seeing there. This is looking from east to west, I believe. Is that correct, Andrew? What do you think? I'm taking a
Yeah, I think, generally it's hard to tell, too. This must be Bettendorf's feet and not our bridge point. But it's hard to see what's going on with the water because of this angle.
That's true. I think this is coming from the Isle of Capri? It could be coming from that building?
I think it's coming from that building, yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at from east to west. And you can see that rain now crossing over the I-74 bridge, heading to on the Illinois side itself. Seeing some of that rain come on down. You actually heard a little rumble of thunder once again. But nonetheless, conditions are certainly there that we could still be talking about a little hail indicated by, and I think what you had the probability on that one, I just noticed that. There we go, hail probability. You can see now just kind of north of Interstate 80, kind of hugging its way along 61 itself. That could be some hail that may be falling within that particular area. Now that warning, severe thunderstorm warning we just showed you in the polygon goes for another maybe 15 more minutes or so, okay? So once that warning expires, and indications are it very likely will. We'll see how this turns out. But if it does, then what we'll likely do is maybe eventually go back to our 8+ app and able to let people know what we could potentially be seeing going into the afternoon hours. But until then, though, we want to make sure that everyone is well aware about the severe weather threat that is going on with this particular storm. Lightning not as widespread, or at least an area that's showing a good amount of lightning. So that's a good sign as that makes its way off to the north and east. So once again, that's the only warning that we have. The one that was just south of the Quad Cities, that has been allowed to expire. That was at about 1:30 or so for the warning to be expired. So that is some good news as it continues to make its way off to the north and east. So that's the only warning that we have right now. Like I said, another about less than 15 more minutes, and then we'll probably give the all clear on that. But once again, we still have to keep in mind that we still may see one more wave that may be developing going into the afternoon hours, and it all depends on the instability levels that we see from that as well. Okay, this is the beast heading toward Kewaunee in Hendry County. And I know what's really sticking out right there, Andrew, and we're keeping an eye on that. I think we have Peter that is in the beast. We'll make sure we can get that connection there. But by the looks of it, we're not sure if his mic is open. Okay, we're going to go to Peter right now. Peter, hi. You're in the
Yes.
Beast now heading toward Kewaunee. I know you're kind of keeping an eye on that part of the cloud there. It doesn't appear to show any type of circulation, but you have better eyes out there than I do.
No, not as of right now, James. I'm not seeing any circulation. I think it's just a low-level cloud. That's all we're kind of seeing here with that one. I have been keeping an eye on that one, though, as we've made our way here towards Kewaunee. We're actually just about to reach Highway 81. We're heading southbound on 2100th Street on our way to Kewaunee, and we're trying to kind of meet this storm. We're going to be seeing that cell that's currently to the southern portions here of the viewing area.
All right, very, very good, Peter. Glad you can join us in the Beast. First time for Peter in the Beast, and of course, having those eyes out there, we actually have a camera that's on top of the truck, and we're able to show you this live as the Beast, our storm-chasing vehicle, continues to move. Had some nice lightning there, way there in the distance there. That was kind of impressive. But once again, we're keeping an eye on that line. No warnings that are out for areas right near the Kewaunee area, so that is some fairly good news. But another reason why we're throwing Peter out in parts of Henry County is to keep an eye on that last wave that may be coming in parts of northeastern Missouri. That's the wave that we still have to get through before we kind of give the all clear when it comes to severe weather heading into the rest of the afternoon. But that's the line that we're watching. Of course, Kewaunee is over here, so we're trying to get Peter ahead of this particular storm. Like I said, no warnings are out for that, but nonetheless, it's had a history of producing some severe weather with this particular line, kind of moving its way from southwest to northeast. Really, probably besides the activity that we see just north of the Quad Cities, at least a decent, healthy line that we're noticing here, Andrew.
Yeah, especially in the Knox County, that line has remained fairly solid for the last hour. You're also seeing a little bit more of a stronger punch from that line in southwest Henry County there. That's right along 34 from Woodhull to Galva. A little bit more stronger reflectivity being reported there. You got some lightning bolts too. I was trying to pinpoint Peter's location. I think he said he was heading to Illinois 81.
Yes.
Taking that into Kewaunee. So I was really interested in his location because of what the cloud features he was seeing. And I was kind of going through some of the velocity data in there too. And I didn't see anything too alarming. And it looks like it's mostly what we like to call scud.
Right.
That you're probably seeing with that feature. It's on the right-hand corner of your screen. And I know when we first took it, it was like, oh my goodness, what are we looking at?
Yes.
That was something that really caught my eye. But yeah, just looking as Peter is kind of panning that camera around, it looks like a lot of scud kind of ongoing there too. And also look at the turbulence of the clouds in the sky. You're getting what we call they're undulatus asperatus clouds.
I'm so glad you said that and not me.
Don't quote me.
But you're right, and you got it right the first time.
Yep.
Yeah, very good.
That's that waviness or that turbulence as we're getting wave after wave off that low pressure to the southwest of us coming in here. So that's quite an impressive display of meteorology that we got going on in the sky right now.
Right, and it's a sign of maybe some more activity that could take place later on in the day. Right now, the time right now is 1:36. I think it's really safe to say that warning is going to be let go, if not already.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do here, folks, before we go, we're going to actually end our coverage here in just a little bit. But we want to give you a wider perspective of what we're keeping an eye on for the afternoon hours. Let's go back to the visible satellite and radar loop because we want to show everyone this is what we're going to keep an eye on going into these next several hours or so. So what we're noticing in parts of northeastern Missouri, we're noticing some more breaks in the clouds, a little bit more sun to create some more of that instability. So we could be seeing maybe one more wave that could be popping in northeastern Missouri that will eventually make its way off to the north and east. The question is the amount of convective energy that's going to be available. If it is pretty small, then I think we may actually be in the clear. But as you can see with our latest convective energy, our storm energy seen here, you can see that areas south of Macomb, there's still some pretty good convective energy that could seep into that line and eventually quickly make its way off to the north and east. So that's something that we'll be monitoring as we kind of go through the afternoon hours. And of course, we'll continue to monitor that moisture that will go from a cool rain for the early evening hours as we get on the backside of this system to eventually changing all fall in the form of some snow. Tornado watch is out for a handful of our counties, especially around the immediate quad cities and points south and east. This is until 9 o'clock, but it's really, that watch is really going to be focused more east of our viewing area. So the good news is we're kind of on the western fringe of this watch, which could very likely have some of our counties, those tornado watch counties, expire. Just because of what we're noticing with this line. So really the better chance of seeing any type of potential for tornadoes is going to be in areas more south and east. And I would say from Peoria to LaSalle, Peru, points eastward toward Bloomington, Kankakee, even around Charleston. That is a big concern. We've been noticing some chasers out there. One of the radar apps that I have really focusing around eastern Illinois for seeing some tornadoes that could actually be pretty strong. So that's kind of what we're watching here. Otherwise, a nice healthy line of storms as they continue to make their way from southwest to around northeast. So folks, thank you so much for joining us here on News 8. Thank you again for joining us on the News 8 Plus app as well. And once again, any more conditions that we see that may eventually turn severe, we'll let you know starting off with the News 8 app. We'll see you later, folks.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 8 Plus app everywhere you stream.
Folks, we just finished our network programming on News 8, 8.1, and now we're back on the 8 Plus app as well. Hopefully, if you have friends of ours that not sure how to use the 8 Plus app, please let them know. Of course, certainly some information, directions as to how you can get that free app on Roku, Smart TV, even on Apple TV as well. Of course, this is an opportunity where we're able to kind of give you a little history of what is taking place so far today and what we are eventually anticipating as we make our way into the rest of the afternoon and even around the early evening. Of course, we keep an eye on this layer of line of storms that are continuing to make their way southwest and northeast. Most of this is producing some nice rain, maybe a good rush of wind here and there, but really most of the lightning is kind of focused in Stark County, just north of the Davenport area, and continues to make his way off to the north and east. No severe thunderstorm warnings that are going on, but this is the second wave of two that we've seen so far today, whereas the conditions have been just right for these what we call elevated thunderstorms. Anytime we focus on elevated thunderstorms, is really focusing on the possibility of seeing some large hail. And we certainly had plenty of reports, a good handful of reports of some hail earlier on in the day. Of course, we noticed that this wave that came on through, these two waves actually, have produced kind of a nice brown colorish to the sky itself. And that's an indicator of maybe some dust that's being carried by these storms out of the plain states themselves. We saw this on Friday evening, and if you parked your car outside this morning or were doing some errands and left your car outside, once those storms are pushing on through, when you probably got out, notice that there's a lot of dust on your car. Okay, that's kind of what we're dealing with here, because this storm, it's a very tightly wrapped system, has some pretty good wind, and that certainly has been indicative of the high wind advisories and warnings that have been going on with this system as it continues to make its way from northwest to southeast. A nice warm convective energy making its way from south to north ahead of the storm, producing that nice little line of thunderstorms. There still could be one more that could be popping up. That may be it right there in parts of Missouri. We'll keep an eye on that. But then as you get to the north and backside of the system, we're pulling in some pretty cold air. And with those temperatures cold enough in those areas, you're getting some snow. And combine that with some strong winds that may be around 50, 60 miles an hour, you've got blizzard warning conditions that are going on in parts of the Hawkeye State and northwestern portions of the Hawkeye State. So like Interstate 29 from Omaha to Sioux City, it is closed. It is closed, okay? And most of the roadways, I would say from Omaha to west of Des Moines, I would say going a little farther northward. I'm trying to remember my towns.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, but they strongly suggest, they've actually said no traveling should be taking place. There we go, thank you. From Barnum, west of Waterloo, in this area right here, they are saying do not travel, okay? Because this is an area you can talk about 5 to 10 inches of snow, and when you throw those winds, visibility is just 0. And there's Interstate 29 from Omaha to Sioux City. That is closed. That is closed because of those blizzard conditions that are going on. But like I said, very tightly wrapped system that is going on. You can see on our road conditions off to the northwest. If your destination takes you to these areas later today, forget it, okay? Change your plans. It's not going to happen because that purple is indicating no traveling is recommended, and the red that you see there, it's practically closed. And sure enough, it's still the case from Omaha all the way up to around Sioux City. So a very similar scene that we even saw around here on Friday evening with the grab bag of activity that was going on with these storm systems. And we continue to see that with that area of low pressure to our south and west, producing this grab bag of severe weather in our general area to even the potential for seeing some blizzard conditions across the area as well. Here's our future track. We move our clock to about 6 p.m. and we'll eventually get on the backside of the system where temperatures begin to drop. This is going to be a cold rain that eventually will be getting colder enough to even change that rain in the form of some snow. And what has been really different compared to our house model that you see here from last night is that the snow coverage is a lot more widespread. Okay, and there is a little bit more moisture that's going to be available here that we're going to see some of that accumulate on the grassy surfaces. And here we are at 11, midnight, and even after that, it won't be until sometime after midnight where we start seeing the end of those snowflakes, mainly from west to east across eastern Iowa and going into northwestern Illinois. So that's going to be taking place after midnight or so. Now, how much snowfall we can potentially get, given the new information that we're seeing, yeah, I would say along areas around the immediate Quad Cities, we may be talking about maybe close to an inch. And keep in mind, grassy surfaces or elevated surfaces, especially if you parked your car outside, you expect to park your car outside overnight, you're going to be seeing a little accumulation. And maybe a little farther east as you go, the duration, I think, may be long enough that we may be talking around 2 inches, maybe a little bit more in places near Princeton and points northward. So that's kind of what we're looking at, given the latest models that we're showing from the system as it makes its way from west to east. So on the Illinois side, that's where we'll see the accumulations, but keep in mind the pavement is so warm because remember, we had been seeing these warm numbers, especially yesterday with those highs making their way in the 70s. So the pavement is way too warm really for any accumulation to take place, and that is why we don't have our weather impact alert come for the early morning commuters. I think we're going to be fine. It's going to look a little pretty out there, I think, with some of the grassy surfaces being covered by some of that snow. So here's our live radar, and Andrew, it has been pretty impressive, of course, around here the past couple of hours, but right now it's just a healthy line with that main point of that line still located right around Scott County. We're seeing that even right near LeClaire itself.
Yeah, I'll zoom you into that radar because that's where we have the most lightning. That's also where we have the most intense reflectivity values coming through. So we're still thinking, at least a good amount of wind with this, but sub-severe winds, likely on the order of probably 30 to 40 miles an hour, just based on some of the velocity data that I've been watching. What is happening, though, especially on the southern flank of this line, as you get down to Kewaunee and also to Toulon, and then eventually, east of Galesburg, is you're seeing some rain-cooled air rush out ahead of the main line. And that is some good news on a couple of fronts. One, it's going to cut down on the wind threat some, but it's also going to cut down on the tornado threat too, because if we're taking away that supply of moisture or that supply of instability before the main line can even get to it, we're robbing it of its necessary ingredients to provide severe weather. So for the meantime, that threat appears to be decreasing on the southern extent of that line, but we're still going to have to watch, of course, what's going on with this northern part. That will decrease, though, the further north it gets as it gets away from that better source of moisture and instability. But yeah, definitely some heavy rain in there. We can throw up the hail tracker just to see if there's anything going on in terms of that with this area. And let's go to the probability. And yeah, it's still fairly low, and all throughout the line, it's low too. I think the most prominent size we've seen all morning long, for the most part, has been pea-sized hail. So that will still be a potential up into Cordova. And as this lifts into Clinton, that's where all of this is tracking. So some small hail potential there. But other than that, like you said earlier, James, just kind of a good rush of some wind, some sub-severe wind, and nothing more than that, at least right now, it looks like.
Yeah, that's a fairly good news. I mean, we kind of used some of that convective energy for this second wave that has been making its way from southwest to northeast. So that is some good news indeed. I think we're now in the town of Kewaunee, heading south through town itself. All looking good around Kewaunee, but just west of Kewaunee, the skies are getting a little dark as that line of showers move in. Maybe see a few embedded thunderstorms, rumbles of thunder in there as well, but nothing severe that we expect to see out of Kewaunee except a good rush of wind and some pretty good rains that are going to be out of it. And so that's going to be really the big question, million-dollar question there, Andrew, is simply what type of convective energy is going to be available going into the earlier mid-afternoon, because keep in mind this is a second wave of showers and storms that have made its way across the area. So is there enough that we could be seeing one final development? I've been noticing around western Missouri that one wave that could be something to keep an eye on, but nonetheless, that's going to be something that is going to be one that we'll be watching as we go through the afternoon. I believe once that potential wave makes its way through, or at least as that wave continues to make its way through northern Missouri, if we kind of see not much real growth out of it, and especially from other meteorologists out there who are keeping an eye on it, then we will likely be in the clear going into the rest of the afternoon itself. But right now things are pretty quiet, getting a little dark there just west of Kewaunee. You will definitely be getting encountered by some pretty good rains and maybe a nice little rush of wind, and might even see a little road cloud back in the distance there. That could be an indication of some of that wind that may be coming from that line just west of town.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You can see some of that turbulence to the sky there. Just to your southwest in Galva, you had a measured wind gust of 43 miles an hour. We're working to get the timing of that. That just came in from the emergency manager there in Galva itself. So there is definitely some wind with this. It's sub-severe wind, but nonetheless, you're going to notice that. And it may have already passed by Peter, because I'm looking at the radar data, and the gust front appears it's sitting just east of town right now, but you may get another little surge of wind from the main line itself, which you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, is just now getting into areas west of downtown Kewaunee, and that's likely what we're looking at there with those turbulent skies. So again, no severe thunderstorm warning for you for this particular storm. These winds are below severe limits, but it looks like you are going to get a good gust of wind there shortly, and probably a good downpour to go along with it.
Yeah, just from that camera shot right there, Andrew, we're seeing a sheet of rain that we see that's making its way just west of town itself. So yeah, you're going to get some pretty decent rain out of this. I just want to point out to our A+ viewers here, looking at the clock, it's about, 1:51 right now. We're going to keep our coverage going until about 2, and I want to make sure our people in the booth know about this, until about 2 p.m., okay? And then what we are going to do on our side, with the help of the A+ app, is that we'll try and we're going to try and create a rotation of some of the radars that we have to let you know that we are continuing to monitor this as we go through the afternoon. And we feel like there's going to be some more activity that may brew in parts of our area, if not all. Then we will get back with our mics, and we'll be able to give you even more details of what to expect as well. So that is what we're going to do, is go into about 2 o'clock or so. We'll make sure that we live stream some of our graphics, some of the radars, and then, of course, we'll give you some more updates, certainly as we go through the afternoon hours or so.
Yep, that'll be the plan, and I'm just building that set right now. So the folks, if you're listening, you can take Max 3 as a source here shortly once I get that up. But yeah, it looks like things are, kind of winding down. We definitely are going to hear from the National Weather Service at 2 o'clock. We're going to do what's called a huddle, where we're all going to meet virtually, and we're going to hear their thoughts regarding what the rest of the afternoon may or may not have in store. I'm really interested to hear what they have to say regarding this setup that we have, because it's a complex one. This isn't an easy one to get through. So I'm interested to hear their thoughts. That 40+ mile per hour wind gust, by the way, looks like it came through Galva between 130 and 145. Or 135. So likely that is just now moving into Kewaunee. And what an impressive sight that is. You got the rain shaft and probably the shelf cloud, or some semblance of a shelf cloud, trying to roll through.
Yeah, if Peter is listening to us, if you're able to get that camera back to the left, let's go to that left, because that was really impressive to see. Yeah, you can see that. That's what Andrew was just talking about there. A nice little shelf cloud that's actually maybe, or at least what we're seeing here on the camera here. That may be a shelf cloud that is passing through, but you can see that heavy, intense rain that is going on. Looks like might be south of town there.
Yeah, very.
Wow.
I like that. That's a nice little display there that's going on.
Peter's taking advantage of the beast, that's for sure, when it comes to the cameras that we have on there as well. He's having some fun, I know that.
That's good, though. This is practice makes perfect, right?
That's right. That's right.
When the time
I want to
comes.
let everyone know that there is no severe thunderstorm warnings or severe threat that we are anticipating from this line over in Kewaunee. We just continue to monitor this, just to know that we are in town, and knowing that we have some eyes out there, just to show you what we see on the camera, on the beast itself, compared to what we're noticing on the radar. Certainly things have really changed ever since early this morning, as we noticed that one line of some hail-producing thunderstorms that made its way across our area. Certainly after sunrise or so, the coverage was a lot more widespread. We were kind of mentioning yesterday in our newscast that line would be a bit more west and north of the Quad Cities. Well, the extension of that made its way right across the river and into west central Illinois itself. So that was the first wave, and we had a lot of reports of some very darkening skies, some very heavy rain, and even some hail that came down from that particular line itself. So that's kind of what we noticed from that first line. And then we saw that second line redevelop just off to our south and west, right around the late morning hours in northeastern Missouri. And this is the line that we're noticing right now, making its way across some of our hometowns. A nice kind of little bend in that line that we've been noticing around parts of eastern parts of Knox County. You can see right there, getting ready to make its way through Stark County. And then that same line makes its way north, right through the immediate Quad Cities itself, and then stretching his way even farther northward. So that is basically the second line that has now made its way, is making its way across the area itself. And like I said, because of the speed of this system, we haven't been seeing much as far as that heavy as far as the rainfall is concerned. The one that we had earlier on this morning kind of added up to 1/10 to over 1/4 of an inch of rain. And with this particular line, and keep in mind the line itself has been moving around 40 to 45 miles an hour or so, only kind of creating maybe about an average about 1/10 of an inch of that rain. But quickly advancing his way from southwest to northeast, so around Kewaunee, Atkinson, Anawan, right, just on the edge of those storms that we see right there. And then if you're watching us in Bureau County, from Buda to Tuscarawas, Princeton, Walnut, that line that we're noticing just around southeastern Henry, parts of Stark County, that's the line that very likely will be impacting you. Nothing severe from this line that we're noticing, so that is some good news. But once again, we're going to keep a close watch on that as we go through these next couple of hours or so. So watching us around Princeton, we're talking about maybe just over a half an hour for you. I would say around LaSalle, Peru, we're maybe talking about maybe close to 10 minutes before the top of the hour for that line to be impacting you. But nonetheless, it's a pretty good line. Nice little bend that we're seeing there. Has had a history of producing winds around 40 to 45 miles an hour or so. Not too worried about any brief power outages given that strong of a wind. But nonetheless, we're just keeping you updated on what we're noticing here on the radar itself. So that's kind of what we're watching there. And once again, want to stress again about maybe another potential line that we could be seeing in parts of Missouri that may be impacting us possibly later in the afternoon. In fact, we're going to be, like I said, as Andrew just mentioned, we're going to get in our little huddle here and figuring out if that line that we see just around western Missouri, you can see it right there, just east of Kansas City. That's the one we'll have to keep an eye on. Now, given the fact that the radar beam is so far out from, especially around the Kansas City area, doesn't look all too bad, but that could be changing in a big way because ahead of that, we have been getting some breaks of sun, still some decent, halfway decent convective energy and instability. So that could actually feed into that line that may be coming in possibly later on in the afternoon, Andrew.
Yep, we're going to have to watch if we can rebuild some of that energy. That will definitely be a possibility. It looks like some good winds there in Peter's location with the trees whipping up a little bit there as that line is pushing through. Something we're going to have to keep an eye on again as we go through this afternoon. We'll see if we can get any recovery. Like James said, there's no warnings in place right now. And just looking at radar, you got an impressive line just east of Galva getting into Kewanee right now. Another impressive little cell as you go into Hillsdale. Just came out of Joslin. There's nothing warned with that right now, but definitely an intense burst of some heavy rain along the Interstate 88 corridor, and that's going to be heading into Erie and eventually just kind of scoop past Prophetstown there to the west. But as of right now, I don't see anything too much to worry about on the radar, but we definitely want to get in with the National Weather Service and see what their thoughts are with the possibility of maybe another round later this afternoon.
Yeah, that's going to be something we'll have to keep an eye on. And once we do notice that, we'll certainly get back to maybe the 8+ app again here as you're watching and kind of give you the update on that. But nonetheless, that threat is still out there. It all depends on what we kind of are seeing now and what we could potentially be seeing as we go through the afternoon hours. But it has been a very active day so far, no surprise. We've been kind of keeping an eye on this for the past few days or so, and certainly has lived up to his billing as far as some of the hail that has been going on, some of the wind that has been going on, and certainly the threat of severe weather that continues to go on and is concerned for areas more east of our viewing area. Of course, any more updates, we'll let you know right here on the News 8 app. Good afternoon, everyone. Chief Meteorologist James Zahara here in the Storm Track 8 Weather Center. Of course, we continue to keep you updated on the weather coverage that has been going on throughout the day today, and especially going on to this afternoon as we continue to monitor this possibly final wave of some strong to potentially severe thunderstorms. So let's get right to the radar itself, kind of give you a widescreen here. And what we're keeping an eye on is this wave that is located just south and east of the Quad Cities. If you're watching us around the immediate Quad Cities, you're getting the all clear when it comes to any more threats of severe weather. But what we are keeping an eye on is a line that is just south and west of the Princeton area. And we can see here, we do have a couple of polygons, at least I can see one of those. There's actually two, which is just the same line that is even associated up north of us in portions of Stark and even western Bureau County. And what we're dealing with here, these are the warnings that are going on in areas outside of Peoria, where we have been getting reports of a possible tornado that may be on the ground just, I would say, east of Canton and just south and west of the Peoria area. So what we're dealing with here, and I go ahead and put the velocity mode on, is you can see there's a little bit of a notch located just south and west of Peoria itself. If you look near the bottom of your screen near Timber and Spring Lake, there on 24, that's what we're concerned about for seeing a tornado that may be taking place in that general area. And as we continue to make our way even north of this, we continue to see that line make its way even as we make our way through parts of Stark and eventually even around Princeton itself, where we are seeing some showers and thunderstorms getting ready to move in. What we have been noticing are these little couplets that are beginning to pop up, and I can show you one of those here in just a second. Let me see if I can go ahead and get my little tracer on here, is that we're noticing these little couplets popping up, like right around Tiscoa, we're noticing that, and just north and west of Princeton, there was a brief little couplet as well. So that's kind of what we've been kind of keeping an eye on here with this wave as it makes its way from southwest to northeast. Eventually, we're going to get to Peter Warner. He is actually in the Beast, in our storm chasing vehicle. He has been actually parked in Princeton for the past 45 minutes or so and is watching this line make its way through. There aren't any warnings out for Bureau County, but it's certainly a line to be concerned about as it makes its way from southwest to northeast. So that's kind of what we're dealing with this line as it makes its way quickly from southwest to northeast. The line itself is likely moving at about 35 to 40 miles an hour or so. Let me know in the booth if we're able to have that connection with Peter on that. Okay, so we're going to go to Peter, who's in the Beast, I believe right around the Princeton area. Hey, Peter, tell me your location just to verify and basically what you're seeing from your side.
Yeah, James, we're actually just about to make our way into downtown Princeton here. And you were saying you saw those couplets. We actually just about 5 minutes ago, as we were driving around town, saw some of those downdrafts. Obviously, no circulation making its way towards the ground, but we did see those lower level clouds here throughout the Princeton area. But you can see we're getting a little bit of a break here until this next band of the system moves in. But we're still kind of tracking this storm and keeping an eye on the radar here, and we're going to try and find a good perspective for you guys as this line continues to make its way here towards Princeton and overall Bureau County, and keep an eye on it for you guys out here as well.
All right, Peter, we appreciate that. Yeah, I think once we get through that line over in Princeton, or more importantly through Bureau County, then we can certainly give the all clear as we pretty much go through the rest of the afternoon. Right now, the biggest concern, and as we addressed in our last coverage on our News 8 Plus app, is the threat that we would be seeing numerous tornadoes that would be potentially popping up a little bit more downstate and east, especially along the eastern half of Illinois. And the towns that we have been really concerned about from this line going into the rest of the afternoon would not only be Peoria, but the potential for Bloomington, maybe Champaign, Charleston, really those areas of concern with this particular line as it makes its way off to the east itself. This is the line that has a chance, is actually a 3 out of 5 risk of maybe seeing not only several tornadoes in parts of east central Illinois, but maybe 1 or 2 of those that actually could be maybe an EF2 or stronger. And those are winds maybe around 110 miles an hour or stronger than that. So in this particular area that we've been noticing in just south and east of us, there is some good convective energy going on with this system. There's some really good shear, a nice turning of that air from the surface to loft, got some pretty cold air to deal with, and this is what's creating these what we call surface-based thunderstorms. The dew points are fairly high, allowing that base cloud to get a little bit lower to the ground itself, and thus seeing that threat for a tornado. That has been confirmed south and west of Peoria, that it is on the ground. It is on the ground just south and west of the Peoria area. Let me go ahead and stop it, put the velocity mode on. And the reason why we're addressing this, folks, is because we got many viewers out there actually in Peoria, family and friends that have been really concerned about this wave that could potentially make its way in that particular part of town. So that's kind of what we're a little concerned about. You can see the reds and greens pretty close together, kind of an indication of seeing some of that circulation that may be taking place just south and west of town. We're really concerned about this wave that is actually just now getting ready to make its way in toward Peoria. This is the part of the storm that has had a report of a tornado on the ground itself, and the line itself is moving very quickly, as high as 65 miles an hour. It is racing from southwest to northeast. So that's kind of what we're keeping an eye on, especially when we make our way even more north of that line itself. So I'm going to move this up a little bit more because this is the same line that is also impacting parts of Bureau County, where we have been noticing just a little broad rotation going on in the base of cloud. In fact, there was a potential report of a possible funnel cloud that was reported just south and west of Princeton, and that was about, taking a look at the time here, maybe about 20 minutes ago. We had a picture that was sent to us, not sure if it really noticed any really dramatic rotation with it, but it was lowering, and that was the biggest concern when it came to this particular part of the storm itself. So once again, we continue to watch those line of storms that are making their way through Bureau County, and of course keeping an eye on the potential rain-cooled outflow that is making its way east of Princeton itself, because that will create certainly plenty of spin left along that line, and that's why we're really concerned about the possibility of maybe seeing a brief spin up or so. So that's kind of what we're looking at. What's interesting here is the temperature difference that we're noticing along Bureau County. Areas more, and let's see if I can bring up the temperature map and satellite and radar. North of Bureau County, we've got temperatures in the 40s. South of Bureau County, we're seeing temperatures in the 60s, near 70 degrees. So you can see that big change in temperatures, and it's an indication that we're dealing with a boundary nearby. I mean, look at the difference. From Kewanee, it's 69. In the Quad Cities, it's 46. Now, of course, keep in mind, these are numbers, these are temperatures that were recorded at just at the top of the hour or so. So really impressive to see that dramatic of a change. So when you're dealing with that, with a boundary nearby, and you're relying this change in wind direction that we're noticing, mainly coming out of the southeast, more of that wind north of that coming out of the north, you present the result of a rotation aloft, okay? And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing, especially right around Peoria and just points northward. So that's kind of the line that we're really keeping an eye on as it continues to make its way off to the east-northeast. Like I said, that conditions are certainly favorable 4 tornadoes this morning. A lot of uptick in the elements going into the potential for severe weather. Since early this morning, we saw a big jump as far as the level of instability, the small plume of dew points making its way across areas, especially along and east of the river itself. And then, of course, we've been noticing the increased indications on the computer models of a little bit of that shear that may be going on as well, that change in wind speed and direction with height. So that has been our biggest concern when it comes to this storm. And you can see how, as we take a look at the live radar itself, you can see how things have really maximized itself, mainly because we're dealing with the warmest part of the day right now, the greatest amount of heat that's going on. And that line is certainly taking advantage of that with the amount of lightning that is going on with this storm. Once again, we're focusing not just as far as that tornado warning that we have in Peoria, but the potential that we could be seeing maybe a brief spin up with some of these slightly discrete cells that are located right near Princeton, but just off that we're seeing here to the north and east. So now we're taking this is once again, this is the beast that we're seeing here, just south and east of Princeton itself. And maybe a little hard, of course, we've got the trees, but there's a nice shield of rain, sheets of rain that are going on just south of town in Princeton itself. So that's why we're seeing the wiper going on our camera with that rain, but the heaviest of that rain is just outside of town, just south of the town itself of Princeton. So once again, it's not just the rain that we're keeping an eye on, but once again, we're keeping an eye on the possible maybe slight little shift in the winds that are taking place within that part of the storm itself. So we got Peter Warner that's out there, just keeping an eye on that. Once again, there's only so much that we can see on the radar itself. And we thought that would be a good idea, like about an hour and a half ago, to actually get Peter out around Princeton, getting ahead of the line itself, because there were indications that from our National Weather Service huddle that we had, that given the peak heating of the day, it would be arriving right around Peoria County itself, that we would be seeing a slight uptick in the line and potential maybe of seeing maybe some brief broad rotation that could be taking place as well. And by looking at the velocity mode going into Princeton itself, you can see that there is some green trying to make its way east. Those are raindrops trying to make its way toward the radar site located in the Quad Cities, and that red that's trying to make its way away from the radar site. So there is some hint of some type of possible broad rotation that may be going on just outside of town, outside of Princeton area itself. And that continues to make its way pretty much off to the north and east. So if you're watching us in Arlington, I would say even around Lamoille, just be on guard for that slight little wave that may be taking place. Now keep in mind, as I widen this picture out even more, we get the beam itself is getting a little bit higher and higher into the storm itself. So it's really hard. It's a big challenge as far as seeing what that surface rotation may be doing. And by the looks of it, from the beast itself, it doesn't look all too bad, but having those real eyes out there, not just from our camera, but having Peter out there, that kind of gives us a little bit of a hint as well. So Peter, let's go back to you. Definitely we're seeing some of the rain that is going on. Sheets of rain I can see out in the distance there, but as far as those clouds are concerned, not too much that we're seeing as far as any signs of any type of rotation.
Yeah, James, we saw a little bit of a tiny little spin up making its way down just to the south, but it pretty much went right back up with a quick little downdraft. Didn't make it anywhere near the surface, but we're going to kind of loop back around into town here. We are just about, I'd say, 5 minutes to the west from downtown Princeton. So we're making a loop on what's called Lover's Lane back into Princeton right now. And once we get to the other side, there's a pretty clear view. You can see some really low level clouds here with this system that we've been keeping an eye on. Not a lot of circulation completely visible to the eye, but there was a couple spots you saw maybe a little bit in the upper levels here of the clouds, not making it towards the surface, but definitely something, we have been keeping an eye on. We saw a little bit of potential for, but nothing so far yet making it towards the surface.
Yeah, and that was the only thing that we've been really concerned about, Peter, is, given the fact that we're seeing a little bit more surface-based with some of that activity, sometimes, reports that we may get may not be funnel clouds. They actually may be what we call scud clouds. And you remember we kind of talked about that, I would say about an hour or so ago, with the possibility that we could be seeing some of these very low-base scud clouds that may be running ahead of the storm itself. And so that's something that could be a little bit of a challenge. You pretty much have to get to a point where you have to see some type of, if there's really any rotation going on and not being misinterpreted, that it's a scud cloud than anything.
Yeah, that's right, James. Earlier, they were scud clouds, and there's been plenty of scud clouds here as well. It's kind of hard to decipher these. You kind of got to look for almost that point that comes down a little bit more. These scud clouds are almost also a little bit downdrafted, just heavy bursts of rain too that you're seeing with it. So that's kind of one thing that we're trying to keep an eye on, is determining if that rotation is really there or if it's more of that scud cloud. And it's kind of been, more of those scud clouds obviously that we've been seeing here with this system. But just keeping an eye on those lower level clouds for that potential more actual rotation that we're seeing towards the surface.
Okay. All right.
So we do
Peter?
have those really low condensation levels here that we're keeping an eye on.
Right. Because of those dew point temperatures, especially east of this particular line, that we're concerned about, because those higher dew points are actually helping to create more of that instability that is going on, especially the farther south of this line as you go. So that's our biggest concern. And I know the people out in Princeton, home of the Tigers, by the way, people out in Princeton really appreciate you being out there, kind of giving us your eyes of what you've been noticing. A lot of scud, a lot of lower base clouds that have been going on in that particular area. But right now, kind of what we're seeing here, not much around Princeton that we're noticing, just a good line of some broken clouds, some nice lightning coming out of it just outside of town itself. But right now things are okay. I want to put the velocity mode on one more time here. And once again, we're getting so far away from the radar beam itself, the radar site, which is located here in the Quad Cities, that may be a bit of a challenge as far as finding that circulation. It's very broad, but once again, if we had to kind of put that on here, it's somewhere around here that we're noticing it. But given the report that we got out of Peter and any other information that we've been noticing, especially from the National Weather Service, it just is a pretty quiet scene out there. You can't rule out maybe a brief funnel cloud out of this, but right now things are looking pretty quiet when it comes to that particular area. Nonetheless, no warnings are out for this. It's just that we're kind of keeping an eye on that part of the storm, because I believe once we get through this wave, and it's not too far away, once we get through this wave, then I believe we're going to be pretty much in the clear. Along this line, once again, we want to tip people that have friends and family out in Peoria. We're really concerned about this part of the storm itself, because there was a tornado that was confirmed that is on the ground around just south and west of Peoria. The velocity mode, as we put this on, once again, getting away from that radar site makes it very challenging, but we can kind of get a good idea just by the reflectivity mode itself that we're on right now, that if we're seeing a decent couplet or a little dent into the line itself, I'm going to see if I can put this on here first, is right there, just north of Pekin, okay? And it's moving in that direction. Okay, that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. And of course, that would take it right over the town of Peoria. I'm going to try and zoom in even more so. And let's see, go the other way here. And once again, there's Peoria right here. And once again, we're kind of watching that area just south and west of Peoria itself. Let me get that line here. And so here's Peoria right there. And the part of the storm that had a tornado that did touch ground, that was confirmed, would likely be in that general area right there. Okay, and once again, that part of that storm is moving like so, okay? So it's going to be pretty close to the Peoria area as this storm in particular is making its way, this part of the storm is making its way as fast as 65 miles an hour. This is the only storm right now that we're, part of the storm that we're definitely keeping an eye on. And that could very likely, this tornado warning could very likely extend even more off to the north and east, but not have an impact when it comes to our viewing area more east of the river. Now, let me kind of wind this shot out even more. Let me see if I can even throw out let me see if I can do this here. I'm going to go to our satellite picture showing the rain and clouds and such, and then I can actually give you a wide perspective of this. Because here we can not only show you that line, but this red box that we're noticing here, or boxes, I guess you want to call it, that is a tornado watch that is out until 9 p.m. Now, of course, we're on the western fringe of that, you can see when it comes to our viewing area. So obviously, once this line moves on through, then these watches in our counties from the immediate Quad Cities down south toward Warren and points eastward, those will be discontinued, and the activity will be focused in areas around eastern Illinois itself, okay? What we're also noticing is some more precipitation coming in from the west as well. And as I move this out just a little bit more, you can see the spinning that's going on just east of Kansas City. No tornadoes or anything from that, but that's where the core of this system is. It's got some rain, it has some wind with it, and we do expect our winds to start picking up a bit more as we head later on today, going in through most of the overnight hours. And this is where we could be talking about wind gusts maybe approaching or over 40 miles an hour or so. Okay, so that's what we're keeping an eye on. But we're also keeping an eye on the blue that we see just north and west of that. In parts of northwestern Iowa, they are under blizzard warnings. They could be seeing upwards of 5 to 10 inches of snow. And when you factor in the winds that's part of this tightly wrapped system, you're talking about maybe 60 miles an hour. So that is creating some blizzard conditions in those areas as we speak. And in those areas, and I'm going to bring up the road conditions, this is an area where if your destination takes you away west of Des Moines, going north of Des Moines, you just want to make sure you change your plans. You can see I'm going to try and get this a little bit closer here. But once again, this is a big concern because there's either no travel or basically closed as far as roads are concerned, north and west of Des Moines itself. In fact, closed along Interstate 29 from Omaha to Sioux City. Now, is that expected to be in our forecast as far as blizzard conditions? No, but I think we have a chance of experiencing some of these winds that may be taking place around here. So if you discontinue this tornado warning that we have, the tornado watch, I should say, we have the entire area under a wind advisory. And then you have the high wind warnings just west of that. And this is where you're going from wind gusts over or close to 50 miles an hour to maybe wind gusts as high as 60 or 70 miles an hour. And that's part of the winds that are impacting some areas in northwestern Iowa. So even though the winds right now aren't too bad, we think that may be changing as we get into the evening and overnight hours. See, right now the winds aren't too bad, but if you make your way a little bit farther west, already we're getting those wind gusts over 40, and I believe we'll start experiencing those type of winds as we head into tomorrow, later on tonight as well. Speaking of the snow, of course, the question is, how much could we potentially see? And this has really been changing throughout the day when it comes to our house model, because depending on when the changeover takes place, and we do anticipate a cold rain to be developing sometime early this evening, that will eventually change over in the form of snow. So the changeover combined with the duration could eventually lead to some snowfall on grassy surfaces. And as you can see, focusing on areas along at least the southeastern half of our viewing area, where within that area, we may be talking about at least an inch of wet snow on grassy surfaces. Maybe even a touch more around Princeton. Princeton right now, you're experiencing those temperatures in the 60s. You got storms by late tonight, especially well after midnight before daybreak. You may be talking about a nice winter wonderland of maybe around 2 inches of snow. So that's kind of what we're keeping an eye on with that system. But fortunately, the pavement is so warm, I'm not worried about any slick spots. The pavement is too warm, it will just melt. So this is why we're kind of stressing than anything that it's going to be just on grassy surfaces. So morning commute should be just fine. So I think what we have to do here, folks, is, or we have to just be concerned about is once this wave moves on through, then we'll be able to go ahead to, we'll be able to stop our coverage here on the 8 Plus app. And then, of course, we'll keep you up, we'll give you another update on the current, which will be taking place at around 4 o'clock. So what we'll do is, let's see here, I'm looking at the clock here. And I want to go ahead and zoom into, once again, around Bureau County. And I wanted to go and put that velocity mode on one more time, because what we'll do is we'll very likely end our coverage here in just a little bit, but still not getting any reports out of Henry County as of yet. I want to see northeast of Hennepin. Let's see what we got here. Oops, let me do this. I'm going to zoom in here. Not too much that we're seeing here. Once again, I'm just keeping an eye on what's going on with this line making its way through just south of Bureau County itself. And right now, things are still looking okay. Nothing as far as anything really confirmed about any type of circulation. So that's some good news. The only really concern that we have is just around the Peoria area. So I want to just make my way through here, just making sure that when I'm not seeing anything that is giving me any type of hint whatsoever when it comes to the storm. I'm just making my way through this velocity mode across Bureau County, and things still look pretty good here. So I think we're just going to be dealing with some just some halfway decent thunderstorms and some nice rain, maybe a good low rush of wind to go with it as well. Want to take a look at any hail size, nothing good there, everything quiet. Hail probability still fairly low, just north of east of Princeton, maybe dealing with maybe some pea-sized hail at best, maybe even around Depew, Hennepin itself. Things are looking pretty good there. There's Hennepin, and there was, maybe something, circulation, but now that has kind of gone away as well. Okay, so what we're going to do here, folks, is we're going to end our coverage here on the News 8 Plus app. Any more updates that we have, please tune in to the current, which is going to be taking place coming on 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. Thanks for everyone for joining us, and we will talk to you very soon.